Steve, want to sit? Melanie's not coming tonight. Just tell you. We are now live to YouTube.
All right, we are live. Welcome, bienvenue en ligne. I'd like to thank our media and broadcast partners for covering tonight's meeting. I'd like to begin our meeting by acknowledging, as we do in a good way, by opening in a good way, by acknowledging with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Madam Clerk.
I have a motion by Councillors Bruni and Zagordo. Resolved that minutes of regular council meeting of April 29, 2025 be approved.
All in favor?
Under agenda item 4, declaration of pecuniary interest, Councillor Bruni has declared with respect to agenda item 9.2 as his son is employed by the OPP. I haven't received any others.
Any other declarations? Seeing none.
And I have a motion by Councillors Kinnick and Zagordo. Resolved that the agenda for May 12, 2025 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor? Carries.
So we will have the planning hearings first. Agenda item 8.7.1, A525 Z 33 Nickel Avenue. It's a motion by Councillors Kinnick and Zagordo. Resolved that the report of the junior planner dated May 12, 2025 concerning application A525Z 33 Nickel Avenue be received and that council approve the application in the following manner. Rezone the subject property from gentle density residential zone with special exception to gentle density residential zone with amended special exception to permit, in addition to those uses permitted in the R2 Special 378 zone, an indoor archery range, subject to the following provisions. Require a minimum of 9 parking spaces in association with the archery range only. Permit 1 parking space to be located within a required front yard setback, and permit the use of crushed stone or other similar hard dustless surface for the provision of required parking spaces for the archery range only. Further resolve that provision 3 of existing special exception 378, which reads, to reduce the required R2 lot area upon the southern 32 meters of the subject property from 550 to 517 square meters be repealed. Rezone 21 Nickel Avenue from gentle density residential with special exception to gentle density residential zone with a new special exception to reduce the lot area from 550 to 517 square meters. Rezone 25 Nickel Avenue from gentle density residential with special exception to gentle density residential with a new special exception to reduce the lot area from 550 to 517 square meters, and that the legal department be requested to prepare the necessary bylaws to effect the same.
Okay, Mr. Tenazzo, can we have a very brief summary of this planning application?
Thank you, Mayor Shoemaker. The subject property is located on the west side of Nickel Avenue. It's about 100 meters north of Second Line West. The building was formerly occupied by a church, and the applicants now wish to convert the building into an indoor archery range. The recommendation is to approve, and Mr. McEachern is here to speak on behalf of this application. Thank you.
Welcome to council, Mr. McEachern. You have anything to add to the report or to Mr. Tenazzo's comments? You're welcome to do so.
I'll try to keep it super brief. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Jacob McEachern. This is my wife and partner, Lana Perry. And yeah, thanks for considering our application this afternoon. We've been introducing archery as a sport, art, and discipline to the community for over 20 years. And we're excited for this potential to expand what we can do with that at this location. We're here to answer any questions, should you have them.
Councilor Bruni?
Would this be strictly indoors and not
Yes.
outdoors?
Yes, strictly indoors.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Other councilors with questions? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, we can have a vote on the matter. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Councillor Gardy's still not here. And agenda item 8.7.2, A425, CIP Housing Community Improvement Plan Amendments. A motion by Councillors Bruni and Caputo. Resolved that the report of the junior planner dated May 12, 2025 concerning A425 CIP Housing Community Improvement Plan amendments be received, and that council approve the amended Housing Community Improvement Plan, delete Schedule A to Bylaw 2024-133 named Appendix A City of Sault Ste. Marie Housing Community Improvement Plan Draft, August 2024, and replace it with Schedule A City of Sault Ste. Marie Housing Community Improvement Plan, May 2025, and allocate $3,345,000 of the Housing Accelerator Fund Round 2 funding to the Housing Community Improvement Plan, and authorize the plan administrator to reallocate funds among the associated grant programs as needed based on demand.
Mr. Tenazzo, this is a lot to explain, but if you can give a high-level summary of it.
Thank you, Mayor Shoemaker. So this application applies to the entire urban area of the city and proposes amendments to the existing community improvement plan. The changes include increased eligibility and funding amounts for the per-door grant programs and the introduction of a municipal fees rebate program, which would provide rebates on, among other things, building permit fees associated with the creation of new eligible dwelling units, The proposed incentives will be funded through existing federal and provincial funding, and I'm available should council have any questions. Thank you.
Councilor, other questions on the CIP? Councilor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Peter Tanazzo. Just going through this, it seems, and I could be wrong, it seems like this is more geared towards, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom housing. Is that right? Or is it also for institutions like apartment buildings or, 20-bed institute or something?
Through you, Mayor Shoemaker, to Councillor Hollingsworth. There's different grant programs that apply to different types of development, but essentially they have to be dwelling units. If you're, the per door grant program tends to be for smaller developments, and then the tax increment equivalent grant is for larger developments like apartment buildings.
Okay, so can you just define apartment buildings a little bit more, as in apartments or condos, or could it be a nursing home and so forth?
Generally, the units have to meet the definition of a dwelling unit. So each unit within that building has to be a self-contained dwelling unit with cooking facilities, bathroom facilities, all self-contained within that individual unit in order to qualify.
Okay, so just want to make sure I understand. If it's a building that's built with a common room, each unit may have a kitchenette. Technically, the unit may be self-sustaining, but if there's a common room, an area that is shared, would that still qualify under what you just described?
Through you, Mayor Shoemaker, maybe I'll give an example. So you could have a rooming house that has 20 bedrooms and 1 kitchen and 1 bathroom that, let's say that the 20 bedrooms share. That would qualify as one dwelling unit, not 20 individual dwelling units.
Okay, and one last question. That's a great example. And if that particular complex you just described has support, like PSWs, is that still acceptable?
Through you, Mayor Shoemaker, yeah, the units can have a wide variety of support, but again, it depends on, are they individual self-contained units that happen to have other supports available? We're not necessarily looking at the supports that are available, but whether those are individual self-contained units.
Okay, and actually one last question. Did you by chance look at a scaling system to see that these particular places should only be one part of the town, or did you not look at a scaling system?
Through you, Mayor Shoemaker, so the CIP is I would suggest based on a scaling system where Precinct 1, which would be the downtown central area of the community, more types of dwelling units are eligible in that area, and there's higher amounts afforded in that area. And then this Precinct number 2, which would be like our nodes areas, our strategic growth areas, they would get the second highest level of incentive, and then everywhere else in the urban area would get the third highest level of incentive, if you will.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Dufour?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Mr. Tanazzo. Mr. Tanazzo, first off, thank you very much for all this hard work that went into generating the CIP and into tweaking it, amending it, and making it better throughout the process. I appreciate what you and your staff have done. I was just wondering if you could give the community a brief overview of what the public response to the first intake has been. How many applications did we get? How many were awarded? That kind of thing. Thanks very much.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour. So the initial intake was from January 1st to March 31st. I believe we received about 15 per door grant applications. Not all were eligible and not all were awarded, but more than we thought were for affordable units. So I believe for those 15 applications, we're well over 20 units, 15 of which will be affordable units that folks will enter into an agreement to be affordable for the next 20 years.
That's great news, and it sounds like we're off to a great start. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Dufour. Other councillors with questions on this? I'd just like to comment, Mr. Tanazzo, that it was nice to see that, excuse me, when available funding came through, we were able to, when available funding came through, we were able to supplement what was what we were initially looking like we were going to be offering for these per door grants, and to a much, in my opinion, more appealing level for folks. So hopefully there is good uptake on this. And with that, we're going to vote on the matter. All in favor? Carries.
Councillor Kinnick? That will bring us to agenda item 6.2, Hope Air Day, and Marnie Stone and Tim Murphy are in attendance.
Welcome to council, Ms. Stone and Mr. Murphy.
This is nice. It's great to see everyone. Beautiful day out there today. Thanks for making time for us to say a few words. We are very proud residents of Sault Ste. Marie here to highlight an important event taking place in our community, Hope Air Day, on June the 6th, and to invite everyone to take part in what promises to be a meaningful and inspiring day.
Hope Air is a national charity that provides free travel, that is flights, accommodation, taxi, and food to medical care for Canadians in financial need. For families in our region where distance often poses a barrier to accessing specialized health services, Hope Air offers more than just transportation. It offers hope, dignity, and a path to healing. Sault Ste. Marie is the largest service community in Ontario by far.
We are incredibly fortunate to have the support of this community, and we want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Mayor Shoemaker for organizing a flag-raising ceremony at City Hall that afternoon. It is a powerful gesture that symbolizes our city's commitment to ensuring all Canadians can access the health care they need, no matter where they live. Later that day, there are 2 special events that we're encouraging everyone to attend.
First is a concert at the Canadian Bush Plain Heritage Centre. In the evening, folks will have a chance to gather, enjoy incredible music, and support Hope Air's life-changing work. Advanced registration is required and space is limited, so we encourage everyone to register early at hopeair.ca/June 6th. Marnie?
Then a family-friendly drop-in event hosted by JD Aero during the day, offering hands-on aviation experiences and a chance to meet the people who help bring Hope Air's mission to life. It's a perfect outing for families and kids of all ages.
These events are not just celebrations. They're acts of community solidarity with families who face significant barriers to healthcare. They are reminders of what's possible when we come together with empathy and action. I hope to see many of you at the flag raising, at the JD Aero event, and at the Bush Plain concert. Your participation makes a real difference, not only in showing support, but in keeping hope flying for families right here in Northern Ontario.
We are grateful to Tulloch Engineering, Brookfield Renewable Power, PUC, Sioux Mill and Lumber, McDougall Energy, Hydro One, Saldan, and the International Bridge Authority. Thank you again for your time and for all you do to support a healthier, more connected community.
Thank you very much. Very important cause, and thank you to Councillor Hollingsworth, who was critical in getting the Hope Air Day proclaimed every day, or every once a year, sorry. Councillor Hollingsworth, before we move on to the risk assessment, you had some accessibility comments you wanted to provide?
Yes. On behalf of Ms. Diane Morel, who's the accessibility coordinator, she asked myself and Councillor Lisa Van Zwellen to remind the community that Accessibility Week is coming up. Accessibility Week is May 25th to the 31st, with the event for the city of Sault Ste. Marie. In the Russ Ramsey Room on Friday, May 30th at 10:30 to 1. We've included noon to 1 in the hopes that the mayor will be able to attend as well. But there's basically a nice open house to celebrate Accessibility Week. There's going to be coffee and snacks and autism care activity designed to help people understand some of the challenges faced by people with autism, hosted by the Autism Ontario and Erica Lumo. Also, vision loss and mobility device activities with AAC members. And I want to say thank you to Carol Magnum and Derek Lafayette for helping with that. And basically keyboard navigation with Dan Gowans. So again, please, let's all remember May 25th to the 31st for Accessibility Week. And please come down on Friday, May 30th at 10:30. It's a very important cause.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Madam Clerk?
Under agenda item 6.1, the community risk assessment for fire, Suzanne Charbonneau-Dent with Tayport Limited is attending virtually.
Welcome to Council, Ms. Charbonneau-Dent.
Thank you, Mayor.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you for this opportunity to present a brief overview of the community risk assessment that was prepared for the city's fire services. Risk assessments, or CRAs, are a legislated requirement as per Ontario Regulation 37818. I'm on slide 2 if it could be advanced. Thank you. So this regulation is found under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, or FPPA. So the regulation requires that all municipalities in Ontario develop a community risk assessment and use it to inform decisions about the provision of fire protection services. And there's also a requirement to review it annually and update it as required or at a 5-year minimum. Risk assessments provide insight into the local needs and circumstances of a community, which can then provide insight for those decisions around fire protection services. And in our case, this project updated the city's 2018 comprehensive risk assessment to reflect current data and to match the provincial template, and was then used to inform the fire master plan update, which will follow at a future meeting. Next slide, please. The methodology used to prepare a CRA is provided from the province within the technical guideline authored by the fire marshal. And our team's approach was also informed by supporting documents such as those from the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA standards, and resources from leading groups like Vision 2020. It also took into consideration the historic comprehensive fire safety effectiveness model from the fire marshal's office. Next slide, please. CRAs analyze 9 risk profiles: geographic, building stock, demographic, past loss and event history, hazard, which directly links to community-wide emergencies and the city's emergency management risks, critical infrastructure, economic, public safety response, and community services. And each risk is then looked at in terms of probability and consequence in order to assign a risk level. And these are ranked as high risks, moderate risks, or low risks. From there, we apply a risk reduction process to either recommend avoiding, mitigating, accepting, or transferring those risks. We also consider the 5 E's, and in this case, they're programs and strategies that support risk reduction. So this includes education for increasing awareness, engineering that changes your physical environment, economic incentives that influence change through financial means, enforcement through legislation and inspection programs, and emergency response that mitigates your injury, illness, and saves lives. These 5 E's also align with what we call the first 3 lines of defense that puts public education and prevention first, and then follows with fire safety standards and enforcement, and captures the last line of defense as emergency response, which is really a fail-safe. This has been used in the province of Ontario, and it is considered that enhancing your first 2 lines of defense is the most efficient and effective model for delivering fire protection services and improving your community safety. Next slide, please. The risk assessment report is a very comprehensive document. So tonight I will highlight just the high and moderate risks identified. There's further risks and key findings included in the detailed report. So on the identified high risks, motor vehicle collisions and those related, so that's collisions and extrications, represent nearly 70% of all of the rescue responses responded by the fire service. Group C, your residential occupancies, are very important in the risk assessment. They represent 95% of your city building stock. And from the data we looked at, 2017 to 2023, those residential occupancies were associated with 77% of the structure fires in the city. From April 2020 to September 2024, the data we had identified 34 incidents, fire-related incidents in vacant properties. Based on the city's parcel data, we also identified that almost 70% of the city's building stock was built prior to the introduction of the Ontario Fire Code. So the age of the building relates to the risk. And this also translates to what the Statistics Canada data has at about 73% of your occupied private dwellings being constructed prior to the fire code being implemented. The risk assessment also identifies the locations of 51 buildings that are defined by the building code as high-rise structures and carry a greater risk as such. Most of those buildings are clustered in your downtown area. Next slide, please. So continuing on the high risks, Sault Ste. Marie has 65 large area buildings identified within the risk assessment, greater than 50,000 square feet. Most of these are in your industrial areas, so the one west of the downtown area, obviously your steel industry, as well as other large buildings in the downtown and commercial and industrial areas along your arterial roadways. The city has 40 registered vulnerable occupancies that carry specific identified risks that are identified through the province with additional legislation. And in general, seniors, those aged 65 and older, represent one of the highest fire groups in Ontario. And that's based on data supporting the residential fire death rate is much higher in that population. And according to the most recent census data, 25% of the city's population are within that seniors category. And that's significantly higher than where the province sits at 18.5%. And the last two pieces again relate to some of the vehicle related data. So collisions themselves represent 62.2% of the rescue calls from 2018 to 2023. So that's 93 calls per year on vehicle collisions. And then extrication itself is the most common type of our technical rescues that account for 7% of the calls that the fire service responds to. So about 10 calls a year. Next slide, please. Looking at moderate risks, the city does have a rail-based risk that could relate to transport incidents, such as a derailment or accidents around hazardous materials. The airport itself also presents some unique risks, both with the aircraft themselves, some of the supporting infrastructure at the airfield, and the transportation of potentially dangerous goods. About 95% of the buildings within the city were identified as having a building footprint of 2,500 square feet or less. And this again is just consistent with that residential building stock or Group C buildings making up the largest part of the city building stock. Waterways within Sault Ste. Marie, including the St. Mary's River, create a risk for water-based incidents. And this becomes a bigger topic that's carried forward into the Fire Master Plan. Water rescue calls are the second most common type of specialized rescue calls, which total about 6 calls per year from 2018 to 2023. Next slide, please. The risk assessment document provides a number of maps that present the spatial analysis of the fire risk characteristics. So this particular figure shows the areas of highest call density of all the emergency calls for the period of 2017 to 2023. So as you can see in the dark purple areas, those are our hotspot locations. And as it sits today, the locations of those hotspots do align well with our existing 4 stations. And they're also within the analysis, there are correlations between some of the risks related to the tall building locations, large building areas, seniors population, and some of the other spatial risks that are tied back and related to the fire station location. Now, this again links to the fact that the community risk assessment is then used to inform your fire master plan update, which again will come forward to council at a future meeting. Next slide, please. And with that, I welcome any questions you may have.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, the detailed report. First question, I believe on page 4, you mentioned again, engineering. Once again, can you just define what do you mean by engineering? Do you mean engineering as in when buildings are built to incorporate fireproofs, or something else? Can you define engineering again?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Chair. Yes, the engineering is a very broad category, similarly to how education can be relayed in many different categories. And relate to that a building itself could be fire suppression systems like sprinkler systems. It could also be engineering relating to your transportation network. Some of the pieces around being able to get the fastest response from your fire stations. So it's really looking at the risk from a lens of how could we solve this problem, and can changing the physical environment through design or through engineering either reduce or eliminate that risk.
Okay, thank you. Another question, you mentioned that we have a large stock of older buildings that were built obviously before the new criteria. Is there anything that we can do to encourage those that are living in these buildings to bring them up to code? Can we enforce something, or how do we handle this to ensure the safety of the owners?
Through you, Chair. Again, thank you for the question. Yes, there are some retrofit requirements that your fire prevention division through the fire service would manage. So they would still ensure that they are meeting the code as required to whatever building date that they are within. So really that inspection and enforcement and ongoing cycle is what is the most important for the prevention aspect. And you're right that community education is certainly what we would be looking to do for any and all residents, whether that be in a brand new single family dwelling or in an older building that is now retrofit to include apartments. But it's very important that they ensure that they have a working smoke alarm in all areas, in all sleeping areas of their home, and test that regularly. And also that they personally have a home escape plan that they practice and discuss with their families so that they can get themselves out in the event of a fire. So those pieces go part and parcel, and that's certainly what the priorities of your fire service and your fire prevention division look at right now.
And on page 7, you referenced the Sault Ste. Marie Airport, I believe. And when you were putting this document together, I'm assuming you had conversations with the airport along with our chief?
Through you, Chair. Yes, the airport consultations were done through the industrial discussions, more so through your actual fire department itself. So we have an understanding of what responses the fire service provides and what they do and don't do to the airport. More discussion on that is also considered within your fire master plan that looks at the actual services as opposed to the risks. A lot of the risk-related information was based on your historic call data and the nature of airports in general across the province.
Okay, that's good to know. And it's my understanding that I believe there's a relationship between the airport and our own city fire department, that they can use each other's fire trucks and so forth. One last question. Bill 23. As you know, Bill 23 is the Ontario Homes Built Faster Act 2022, Bill 23. Basically, I understand it is to allow for creation of additional residential units on existing residential property. Should we be concerned about this bill if we are allowing other units to be built on a piece of property? And you just outlined that we have high density areas. Should we be careful of issuing building permits and not to add on density that could spread fire if fire should jump from one building to another? Should we be basically red flagging that?
Through you, the chair. The most important piece is respecting the Ontario Building Code. So as long as projects are done that respect the existing code today and that the fire department has an involvement in that process, I don't believe that that's considered to be anything different than other communities are experiencing, and certainly other urban areas are experiencing in the province. The important part from my perspective is the involvement and the coordination of fire prevention in the planning for these projects.
Okay, thank you. And I know that Mr. Peter Tenazzo is always on top of this, so thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Other councillors with questions on this? Seeing none?
There is a report associated with this at 8.5.1. So I have a motion by Councillor Ben Segordo resolved that the report of the fire chief dated May 12, 2025 concerning community risk assessment update 2025 be received as information. Further, that council directs the fire chief with the consultant to return in the coming months to present the update to the fire master plan. And that is open for a vote.
All in favor? That carries. Thank you, Ms. Charbonneau-Dent.
Thank you.
That should bring us to consent, I believe, Madam Clerk.
Unless you wanted to go to financials and lease, I believe they're waiting in another.
Yes, yes, let's do that. We can go to, where is it here?
Agenda item 8.2.1 is the year-end financial report to December 31, 2024. There's a motion by Councillors Bruni and Caputo, resolved that the report of the Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer dated May 12, 2025 concerning year-end financial report December 31, 2024 be received and that 2024 year-end transfers be approved.
Okay, so council, why don't we ask any questions that are related to any department other than police? Are there any questions related to any department other than police? Councillor Caputo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine is just more of a comment than a question. The obvious big one, big item for discussion was the overage in the snow removal budget, $1.4 million. In speaking with folks around the community, sorry.
That's the first quarter financials. These are the year-end
sorry.
financials.
I'm
We
so
will
sorry.
get to the first quarter financials.
I'm sorry. Then no, I don't have a question.
Not related to police. Councillor Dufour, Councillor Kinnick, I'm just looking at the screen. Anything from either of you? No? Okay. We've got police just coming in, the board chair and the interim chief. So we will give them a minute to come into the council chambers. Welcome to council, Mr. Bruno and interim chief Duguay. Before we get started, I'll start off with a couple of comments. We'll get to the questions that all of council has on how we got to this point and what we're going to do to prevent something like this from arising in the future, especially the way it did. But I've tried to and want to continue to make clear to the community that the questioning of the process here, at least from my view, is not a questioning of the work that police do. The police do an incredibly difficult job that certainly I, and I suspect many in the community, don't have the wherewithal to do. They go into situations that most of us don't care to find ourselves in and are lucky that we don't find ourselves in. And so there is reason to be concerned here from a budgetary standpoint. There's reason to be upset here from a governance standpoint. But I don't want any of the conversation to be taken as an attack on policing in our community. I think that the community values its police force. And what we're really trying to get to the bottom of is how did we get to this point in terms of the budget? How can we prevent that from happening again? and what is the most efficient way to police the community in a way that the residents expect of us. And that is looking at every option and considering every avenue. So I, for one, just want to thank the members of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service who keep us safe and do their jobs day in and day out. And the discussions we have today are really governance discussions that we're elected to have. So that is what brings us to Mr. Bruno. I will provide you the opportunity to say a few comments if you've got a few off the top, and then we can get into questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start and council for the opportunity to speak to you today and the community as well. As we discussed at our most recent Police Services Board meeting, we now know the final deficit of the 2024 budget is approximately 6% of approximately $2.9 million. We also released projections for the 2025 budget year, which shows a projected deficit of $1.9 million. The initial projection was presented at our most recent board meeting, and updated financials will be presented quarterly moving on. We are dealing with challenging times in policing, with multiple police officers eligible to retire as early as 2024, an unprecedented 15 to 20% of our police officers unable to answer emergency calls due to workplace injury. Additional officers were hired to ensure we could provide adequate and effective policing. The board became aware of this in 2024. In late February 2025, city staff notified us as they were working on year end. We, along with the police services, immediately implemented measures to mitigate the deficit. Interim Chief Brent Duguay will provide figures for the 2024 deficit and provided information on the way we are working to mitigate the projected 2025 deficit. Brent will present this information, and I will close it as well.
Welcome to council, Interim Chief.
That up a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And once again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak here today. Before I speak about the efforts to decrease the 2025 deficit, I want to give you a summary of the 2024 overages. I believe a package was provided to Council on Friday through Mr. Bear, and with a detailed accounting of those, but I'll go over a few of them here today. Main cause of the deficit for 2024 was an increase in spending on salaries and benefits for the members of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service. This includes approximately $1 million in overtime for major occurrences, staffing shortages, and investigative support. Investigative support can be calling out additional resources such as forensics, canine, emergency services unit, or any other member to support operations at major occurrence. Just an example of some of the numbers. 2024, the ESU, which is our tactical team, obviously called out for high-risk events, weapons calls often, was called out approximately 31 times. Our K9 unit, at that time we had 2 K9 units, were called out over 60 times. That'd be for missing persons, obviously to support on drug warrants and those high-risk calls that the tactical team would be called out to. Members of our investigative branch, which would be drug unit, forensics unit, crime suppression, as well as members of our detective bureau, were called out 265 times to assist with investigations. Often these investigations are legislated, policy-driven, and are part of the industry standard. Board Chair Bruno mentioned with multiple officers eligible for retirements and the service proactive recruitment to ensure that we had adequate staffing for our front line. Recruiting efforts led to a spending of approximately $717,000 over the budgeted figures. That's in salaries. Vacation accrual also resulted in a overage of approximately $390,000. Essentially, unused vacation by members goes into a bank. Although it's not a financial payout, it's something that we have to account for. We must pay this in case an individual were to retire, and my understanding is that this is a accounting best practice. So that finance sits there in a bank until we have to pay it out upon retirement for officers. It should be noted that officers who are continue to serve on or be on WSIB accrue their overtime or their vacation time. They aren't using it while they're off on WSIB. So any long-term sick leave would continue to accrue vacation. Salary extras, which is included in the package, includes stat holiday pay, retirement payouts, and relieving for supervisor operation positions. Obviously important to have supervisors in situations where an operational need might be present. This figure is approximately $327,000. Contractually, service must relieve for any position that is off for an extended period of time. So any supervisor that may be off on WSIB, we'd have to relieve full time for that position. Other large items is our job evaluation review. Is legislated that each position in the service be reviewed and maintained. Contractual agreement upon process is to conduct these reviews in a 5-year cycle. Our most recent cycle fell between 2023 and 2024. Several civilian positions received salary increases as a result of that review. Special constable positions were also reviewed as a result of the 2023 contract negotiation, which identified potential added duties for special constables as a result of the new CSPA. Those changes to job description, as well as the changes for the special constables, resulted in approximately $378,000 in retroactive pay and salary increases. Those will continue forward, obviously. Notable that operational budgets such as training, travel, capital expenditures, which are not controlled by the collective agreement, we actually found a $670,000 under budget. So the things that we can control with regards to sending people away on course and things like that, we found actually $670,000. Since learning the budget deficit in February, we have carefully reviewed approved items for 2025. Hiring has been suspended outside of the operational needs that we may come across. Non-essential travel, and particularly in external professional committees, have been significantly reduced. We are working with city finance staff to develop an MOU to ensure we are communicating effectively and to enhance our partnerships and transparency. The service, along with the board, continues to look for revenue streams such as grant funding and other sources of revenue. We recently submitted 2 applications, one for the newly opened Division 2, location, the other for our mobile crisis response team. We're waiting for those results of those grant applications. Sorry, and thank you very much. Sorry for my nervousness. Thank you very much for having us here today. I'll turn back over to Mr. Bruno.
Thank you, Interim Chief. In closing, I want to ensure Mr. Mayor and Council that we are, as a board, are being open and transparent with budget challenges. As soon as the board was aware, we worked with senior leadership at the Sault Ste. Marie Police to begin a thorough review. We remain committed to responsible fiscal management as the service is funded by the taxpayers of Sault Ste. Marie and Prince Township. The board will be receiving quarterly projections moving forward from the Sault Ste. Marie Police Finance Services. However, we are, as a board, are mandated by the Community Safety and Policing Act to provide adequate and effective policing. The additional hires initially made to offset retirements have boosted platoons and allowed for some staffing of Division 2 just down the street from here. I want to again thank Mayor and Council for allowing us the platform to speak and provide information about our budget challenges. We also have distributed in the past budget deficit analysis, mitigations, analysis of contributing factors, which everyone has at their disposal. As the deputy mentioned, suspension of hiring, restrictions of discretionary expenditure, enhanced financial oversight and pursuit of alternative revenue streams, commitment to accountability and transparency. So we thank you again for the opportunity. We certainly want to work with you and try to come up with any other transparencies that we can come up with and any kind of MOU that would be satisfactory to both parties. So we thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Chair Bruno. Chair Bruno, I have gone through the minutes posted on your website from your meetings. In October of 2024, it's reported here that up to September of 2024, the reported overtime is better than last year. And there is a relatively consistent running total when compared to last year. Under monthly staff shortage overtime, a 5-year comparison dated to September 2024, it says the chief noted a significant decrease in overtime, that there was 27% left in the budget and you were on track with spending appropriately. What happened in those last 3 months to change that?
Very quickly, I will say exactly what happened. On October 27th, as you say, Councilor Caputo, through you, Mr. Mayor, we thought we had 27, 28% left on our budget, as you stated as well. So having said that, we went through December, January, and then in February, when the city did their year end, we got an email saying that we were overspent. So we were overspent at that point. I remember the day distinctly because I was at a labor conference with my vice chair. We left the labor conference and came back immediately, and we had an emergency meeting the next day to address the situation. And that's all that we know. And then from there, we proceeded to do all of the things that we have mentioned, not to go over them again, but certainly that's the sequence of events that happened.
So respectfully, then, did somebody misread these reports? Or was the board being misled with the information that was being given? Because the information being given is that you had more than a quarter left of your budget.
It's an operational matter as well. And right now, we don't have our financial accountant here, and we don't have the other person that was responsible for that as well here. So I don't feel confident to answer that 100%. So I'm going to defer that question.
Okay. If, Mr. Mayor, if we're deferring questions, like when can we expect an answer on that, or like how?
If I may, at the end, I was going to suggest that any questions, please, we've had some counselors send them in as of this morning. We certainly would take more questions. We will review them with the team and the people that will have the knowledge, and I would certainly share that, and you can share that with all the counselors as well. So that is an ongoing practice that we've established with Mr. Mayor, and we hope that you would take that up as well.
So then again, respectfully, I'm not trying to attack you guys. I appreciate you being here. But if somebody from finance would have been the person with the answers, why isn't somebody from finance here today to answer the financial questions?
Finance is not in the country right now.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Mr. Bruno, in your remarks, you noted that there was going to be a review. Is that an in-house review, or are you enlisting a third party to do this review of the budget or the overage?
The review of the budget will be together, I'm hoping, with Mr. Mayor's cooperation and Chief Executive Officer Tom Vare, that we continue our conversations with the finance people from City Hall and our finance people, as well as anyone else that would be relevant to that.
Okay, thank you. I think that for me, that is going to be, those will be my only questions tonight. it's not my intention to badger you or to get too far into the weeds. Obviously, like, I have other questions which I've sent to you, and, you know, we can converse that way. I just think it's really important that the community is put at ease with where this money has gone, because it is gone. And it has to come from somewhere. It's, I mean, my understanding that it'll come from reserves here, which is ultimately taxpayer dollars. I hope that we can do something to mitigate this moving forward. But I think ultimately my main question to you, and I hope that either internally or however this needs to be answered, is what happened for you to be, from what I can see from your board reports, you were misled by the chief. Unless he was misreading something. And so what happened there? Misread or misled? And who is responsible for this? Because if as a board you were misled, then this is ultimately the fault of Chief Stevenson. If not, then, you know, maybe we need to look at the board and have a shakeup there. But either way, I think this needs to be addressed, obviously. You're here today and I appreciate that. But those are my questions and comments, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Councillor Dufour?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Interim Chief Duguay and Board Chair Bruno for attending. Along the similar lines of questioning to Councillor Caputo, what I'm curious about is what are the steps that are going to be undertaken to get an answer to this very fundamental question? So I understand that Board Chair Bruno became aware in February of the discrepancy between the budget numbers presented last fall and in February, but it's now been 2 months. And so I have some pretty serious concerns that in those 2 months, the answers have not yet been forthcoming as to where this money went and why. And my question for you, Board Chair Bruno, is will your board or you be willing to engage with an outside third party in order to try to get to the bottom of this, or will you just be engaging through city finance to get these answers? Thanks.
I think to answer your last question there, remember, I have to take things back to the board. So it'll be a board decision on anything that we do to investigate or to coordinate with city. And certainly we are open to any kind of suggestions. However, I can't speak on everybody's behalf tonight, but we will take it into our purview and certainly look at it and prepare as best we can.
Just as one further question, Mr. Mayor, either through you to Mr. Bruno or to Michelle. Michelle, in 2024, what was the police levy increase?
What was the police levy increase in 2024? Not the most recent levy increase, but the one prior to that.
Sorry. Just give me a minute because I have to grab my information here. The police levy increase in 2024 was 11.6%.
Okay, and would the overage be in addition to that? So Mr. Bruno said it was approximately the 1.9 million was 6% over. Would that be 6% on top of 11.4?
Yes, if they were 6% over the budget, it would be on top of that, correct?
Okay,
But
so
those
that's
are, just for clarification, the 1.9 million you're referring to, Councillor Dufour, is the 25 projected deficit. The actual
Yes,
deficit
please.
in 24, when they got 11% increase in their budget, was 2.9.
Okay, so the total percent for year end 2024 over 2023 would be approaching 20%. Is that accurate?
Do you, Ms. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour? Yes, year over year, it would be upwards towards that.
Okay, and it would be, yes, I think that just as my closing comments, I think that's it's an astonishing number. It's an astonishing number for any governance board to be seeing without being aware. And I think the community is going to want further answers as to how and why this happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Chair Bruni. To you both, thank you for coming tonight to answer our questions. And first question, I know that in the past 2 or 3 years, I think there was some conversation about working closer with the city, because I remember that the finance program that the police department uses versus the finance program that the city uses weren't really in sync. And so, so I'm under the impression that the information you were given may have been missing because some work was being done on having the two finance programs to be more in sync. Can anyone comment on that?
I'm not obviously in the finance department, but maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe Michelle can shed some light on that. I do understand there are a couple of different software programs that run. For instance, the city police station sends our numbers down for payroll. So I'm assuming there's always a bit of a delay. Once again, through you, Mr. Mayor, Michelle, is that accurate? Or I'm not sure how close we are from month to month as far as the numbers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. As the interim Chief Dugay has said, there's several different programs that are in use. There's one for payroll, so they'll be reporting after each payroll that is done, that's available. And police can work with us if there's other reports that they require. We can ensure that they have that information. The other one is their main financial system, which police uses the same one as the city. All of their bills get paid through the city accounts, and all of their accounts are within the city general ledger as such. So they also have access to that system as a whole. The other one that's problematic right now that we're actually working on so that it's in a better position for the 2026 budget is our budget program. So what was happening before is the availability and the restrictions as to who could access what through it was limiting what police could do. So that was identified and that has been changed. But there's always the opportunity for police, and this is where, you know, hopefully an MOU, as we're working through right now, as was discussed, we'll have further conversations so that we're aware if there's some information that is not being provided or reports that are required, we're here to work with everybody, whether it be police, whether it be another organization, such as the library that also uses our systems. We are here to help work through that.
Okay. So it sounds to me, if I can summarize, that over the last few years, there was a few programs that weren't in sync, that the police department may not have been privy to, such as payroll, and payroll is huge, knowing your overtime costs.
No, that's an incorrect summary. Ask questions, please. That's an incorrect summary.
I'm just trying to understand what Ms. Michelle has just said, but it sounds like you're going to start working closer together.
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, the systems are always in sync. They have to be in sync. We have one general ledger. That is basically your final results and your information. If the information that was being used and the reports weren't available, that's where the outreach needs to happen. We're not aware of what police needs. They have their own finance department. So that's why there has been the outreach, especially since this happened, saying, what can we do to help? What are you missing? What do you need? And like I said, the budget program was the one that didn't provide the access. So it made it more difficult for them to do their budget, and they didn't have the same information. That one is definitely being addressed in 2026. But as for payroll, as for your finance, those are your key systems. And both of those systems have to be in sync. There's nothing out of sync.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Another question through you, Mayor, to either the chair or the deputy. When did we open up the police department downtown? Was it just in 2024 or was it earlier in 2023?
So there's two answers to that. Officially today, we opened up the downtown, but it was in 2024. Original thought was we'd open up the downtown in 2024 and try and do the renovations we felt we needed to do while living in the building and operating out of there. It became very obvious with some of the repair work and construction work that had to be done to make it into kind of what council was looking for as a full-time downtown police detachment. That wasn't going to be feasible, so we embarked upon trying to get that work done as quickly as possible. It's been completed except for a few small items, and we actually did the kind of a re-grand opening again today.
Okay. And it sounds like you probably started planning for that some time ago. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think the scope changed as the plans kind of evolved. The desire to have 17 officers in the downtown was obviously what goes along with having that. I think it was kind of envisioned as being a smaller version and phased in. However, with the plans moving forward into the whole building, I believe Councillor Spina was on the board at that time and suggested maybe the whole building because we need space from our service. So when that decision was made, obviously that kind of extended the life of the project.
Okay. So potentially maybe that could have contributed to some financing.
Councillor Holland.
Yeah, and I believe.
Okay.
The reasons the budget was over. No, hang on a sec there, Councillor Hollingsworth. Not okay, because Division 2 was not listed in the reasons that the budget was over. The reasons they're over is all.
I'm just exploring. I'm just trying to educate myself. In all fairness, I'm not a finance person like you. Sorry.
I don't work in finance.
And that's everything.
Councillor
Again,
Hollingsworth,
thank you very
please.
much. I apologize. I'm not a finance person.
I'm not asking you to be a finance person. I'm telling you that the reasons that the budget went over were enumerated in the council report. And so to suggest that it's something not enumerated is incorrect.
I'm just clarifying. That's all. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. If you want to clarify, you can ask that question of them. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few quick questions based on some of the information that came up today. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Board Chair Bruno. One of the things you mentioned is that there's two people that can answer the questions on why this happened. One is your finance person who is away, and one is someone else. Who is that someone else?
That is the former chief.
Okay, so Hugh Stevenson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So in your, I think I understood you, in your most current, the most current report you got from the former chief stated you were on track or under budget, is that correct?
As of October 28th, yes, we had approximately 27-28% left.
Okay. And you made a comment about when you found it, when you found this overage in February. Was it you and the board that found this, or was it someone else that found this?
No, the email came from the city. So we reacted to that very quickly once we were told of that.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Board Chair Bruno, from October of 2024 until the end of February 2025, did you receive any information from the administration of the service on this overage or its potential or what could be done to mitigate it?
No.
Okay. And just to go back to another comment that was made again by Board Chair Bruno, comment about working with the city departments and city staff to work on mitigation strategies and ways to save money going forward. I sincerely appreciate that. There was a time, a short time ago, when there was actually a motion from this council to have that done. And it took over 2 years for the service to look into that. Can we expect quicker action on this by the board?
Absolutely. And that wasn't from a lack of trying. We really tried to get the wheels in motion then. It just went from meeting to meeting, and we certainly would like all the cooperation from everyone, and we will forge ahead with that. No
Thank you.
issue.
Mr. Mayor, just a few comments, if that's okay. Thank you. Just a few short comments, because I want to make sure that we put this in perspective for the citizens of our city. Number one, I sincerely appreciate your comments at the opening. I believe fully that this is a complete failure of governance and oversight from a board level all the way through the administration, and not of the service members and civilian or police service members and of their service to our community at all. And I think we all understand now the impact of a deficit like this, the impact that it has on our community. And to put it in perspective, when we look at totality over 2 years of approximately $5 million, what that means, and just so people can understand, the entire resurfacing budget for roads in the city of Sault Ste. Marie for an entire year is only $4.5 million. This is more than the entire road resurfacing budget for the year. As well, a project like the redoing of People's Road is only an $8 million project. So this is well on its way to a project of that magnitude. The asphalt, concrete, ditching, sidewalks, curbs, potholes, the budget for that in our city is $4.2 million. So when departments have overages such as this, it really affects our city's ability to provide services to other areas of our community that are in areas of greatest need. And especially when we look at a board report that indicates that violent crime is on a downward trend year after year after year after year. However, budget increases are exponentially getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then massive overages like this. That money has to come from somewhere. It has to come from the citizens of this community, and it has to defer projects that are in our community. I am excited to hear that the board chair is here, ready, willing, and able to work with the city to find solutions moving forward, because quite frankly, the only way to move forward is by everybody finding a way to work together and resolve issues such as this. But I think it's important for us to know what the actual impact is. And it sounds from what we've heard today that the service still needs time to find the actual reasons for why this happened. And I'm happy to hear that city staff are going to be part of that conversation to have greater transparency. So I do appreciate everyone coming here today and being open, honest, and transparent. And I think that's a fantastic way for us to move forward. So I'm happy to see the results of that when it comes forward.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you,
if I
Councillor
may.
Spina. No, there were no questions there, Chairperson Bruno. Councillor Bruni?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Interim Chief Duguay, regarding the staffing. Originally, it was budgeted for 158 police officers, and it was increased by 12. So my question is, how difficult is it to provide new recruits to the police college? Like, it's very limited. Is it difficult to have new recruits get trained? Do we have enough seats for them?
Well, thank you very much for asking that question. It's very pertinent to kind of the conversation we're having here today. Obviously, the board and the chief's primary goal for this community beyond budget would be provide adequate and effective policing. So although the budget is an estimate that we like to provide, sometimes we are faced with unforeseen occurrences that obviously we have to adapt to. So yeah, I believe in 2024, we were looking at 158 officers, wanted to ask for 12 more to be added. I think after review by council, we dropped 3 of those positions off. Part of the reason for dropping those positions off is we didn't know the seats we'd have available to us at the Ontario Police College. At the time, we were looking for 3 to 4 positions at an intake. So if you extrapolate that, those 3 positions would have been 12 officers, 3 were dropped, so we were down to 9. Police officer to be hired in this community, it takes 1 to 2 months to recruit that officer. It takes time, obviously, once they are hired to go through the hiring process, to train. You're looking at 3 months at Ontario Police College, about a month with us before they go away. They return, if they're successful at the police college, they spend 3 to 4 months with a coach officer, up to over 50 shifts. If everything goes well there, they start working day shifts alone and then evening shifts. So you're 12 to 18 months before an officer, a recruit constable, can start doing frontline policing on their own with, and that's with whatever experience you have when you have 18 months on a job. So yeah, it takes time to hire those individuals. Obviously, from our perspective, we have to project against the 16 retirements that we were facing, as well as a drastic rise in workplace injuries.
Regarding overtime, basically, it's like snowfall. You don't know when there's going to be a snowfall. But for overtime, how can you budget for overtime when you do your yearly budget?
Well, I mean, I think the past is probably a good predictor of the future. We have consistently had about $1 million in overtime over the last 5 years. I think that's in the package. We have reduced that down. I say we, the chief of the time. Obviously, we were asked by council to kind of, you bring your estimate forward and then you ask to reduce it. And over time, I think is probably one of those areas where we've reduced that over 3 in hopes that you won't have the 5 homicides this year. Unfortunately, we do operate in a world where you need a tactical team, you need a drug unit. Those are the expectations. And as the numbers I presented earlier, when you're calling out the tactical team 31 times, that's 12 members. When you're calling the drug unit out and CID out 265 times, that's support for your frontline officers. Staff shortage does prove, and as Ms. Caputo, through you, Mr. Mayor, I mentioned staff shortages do make up a portion of that. With the hiring, we've started to see that come down, but staff shortages and investigative support would certainly have the larger portion of that.
So maybe you can go over the operational budget. You've identified $700,000. Can you quickly go over where are the savings going to come from? Again, so the public and councilors know exactly where the savings will come from.
So that
just so I can clarify there. Are you asking for
2025?
Yes. Okay. For 2025's projected deficit.
Yeah.
So, okay to answer through you, Mr. Mayor? Sorry. So in 2024, and I'll get to 2025, but in 2024, we had projected 16 officers that were eligible for retirement. Some of you that were around in 95, we hired a large number of individuals. I was one of those individuals. I think it was 26 or 27 officers that were hired during that to cover off some buyouts that we had offered. So 95, fast forward to 2025, we have 16 officers in 2024 that were eligible for retirement. 3 of those officers did retire. So we're sitting with 13 officers that are still eligible to retire. There is no ability or mechanism in place to identify when they will retire. And certainly we're not in a position to be asking people when they'll retire or forcing them or trying to suggest they retire. So the savings come when the individuals that are on that current retirement list make their choice to put in their notification. If they were all to go on the same day, we'd be into a position where you're into staffing shortages potentially again.
Right. Thank you.
And once again, we need to be adequate and effective, so we have to project for that, knowing that it's going to take 18 months or 12 to 18 months to get a new to replace those officers. So those officers are currently sitting there with the recruits we've already hired to replace them. That's what there's the overage essentially.
And these officers now are downtown substation. Are they working there some, or have you moved men there? Not men, sorry. Have you moved officers there?
So we've staffed the downtown. We've moved a number of our units, traffic, canine, call response units downtown. As far as what you're asking is who are the ones dedicated to the downtown at this point. We have 4 constables, 1 sergeant, and a staff sergeant overseeing the entire station.
Okay, thank you. Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay with you. Thank you. I sit on the police board, and when we were notified about this, it was shocking and disturbing. But sometimes there's good things that come out, believe it or not, at a cost. Councilors wanted more downtown security, police officers downtown. You wanted a substation, that was put in. Part of the money, part of the budget was to hire some of these police officers, which they did. The other good thing that I see is we're seeing the city finance and the police finance working together, and I think that's very, very important. Especially in the past, it wasn't a great relationship. It's going to get only better now because they can be a watchdog for the police services and vice versa with all the information that's out there in the finance department. And I know Steve has been meeting, or Mr. Falsey has been meeting with our police finance team. So I think that's positive. I think as a board, you make decisions when information is provided to you. When a financial statement comes to you, you're making your decisions. And unfortunately, we made the decisions with the information that was provided. Councillor Spina, you were on the board. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Councillor Vezo-Allen was on the board. She was actually chair of the board. You make decisions that come forward to you. All the information that you receive, that's your decision. And as a board, we made that decision. Unfortunately, I guess the information wasn't in there for us to make the appropriate decision. So I'll leave it at that. I hope the communication between the city and police services improves, and it has started, and hopefully it continues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. Councillor Zagordo. You know what? I don't think the lights are working on the microphones, but it should be working.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I need it, but anyway. Without belaboring what's occurred, and I'm glad to hear that there's a lot of positivity and things like that moving forward, that I do understand. But we do have to contend with, so far, not even 5 months into the year, the $1.9 million projected deficit. So my question is through you, Mr. Mayor, to Chair Bruno, how confident, and this is a tough one, sorry. How confident are you that no budget increase will occur this year and no deficit for this coming year?
Number one, I'm not a finance person. My wife is, I'm not. It's hard for me to put all of those projections in a proper perspective. However, I do see some light in the sense of what the deputy has just mentioned with the retirements. The retirements are going to be key if it all happens. You might be saying, is it going to happen? We don't know that. And we seriously tell you that we don't know. Operationally, we were at 675 to the good. So the operation is being run very, very efficiently. It's all of these initiatives. You got to remember that we have one of the most efficient police force in Ontario. All the technology that has gone into everything, all of the substation that we've created, the cameras that have been created, all of these have come in the last 5 to 10 years. And there are good initiatives. They're very good initiatives to bring our police force forward so that we aren't that one community that's been lagging behind. But there's a cost to that. And for that, we regret what happened. And we certainly are going to look at every possible way to rectify that. And everybody will be watching, as Councillor Bruni said. I think, some good has come of that because we want that cooperation and we want to be able to deal with the public. Some of the things that we don't have control over are in contracts. And so contracts and effective and policing. So those we don't have a handle. There's a lot of variables that are here. No one's done anything nefarious. So you know what? I think that we're on the right track. And to answer your question more definitively, we would need a little bit more resources from our finance people. But later on, maybe we can get that as well. Thank you.
And I don't think anyone is disputing that. We have to stay up with the times and making sure that equipment and all these other kind of things, and of course, salaries and benefits are critical. These are things that we have to take care of. And the budgeting process, excuse me, should be taking care of that. That's a critical thing. So the reason why I asked that question is because come budget deliberations for this year, and with the amount that's come forward, it could be a difficult process this year in terms of, it is every year, but this does set us back a bit. And like I said, looking forward, let's look to the positive, and I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Councillor Gardy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I apologize to the chief and to Mr. Bruno for not sending these in advance, but they kind of
came up as you guys were speaking. So, Mr. Mayor, before we get started, I have a question to you. I was wondering if you or Mr. Bruni could explain to the public the autonomy that the Police Services Board has outside of like, though they are a part of us, the police service is a part of us. Could someone explain the autonomy of said board? Maybe Ms. Fields? I don't know, somebody to the best of their ability, because I think it's important for the community to recognize that there is quite a bit of autonomy there.
Ms. Fields, are you able to answer that?
Answer some of it. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardy. They're separate boards, obviously. We have some say in how the budget comes to us. We can look at estimates, we can look at time that it covers, but we don't have a veto power. We can't tell them how to spend their money. And if we don't agree with the numbers that they bring to us, there's two ways to go. They can either jointly go to a conciliation and work it out through a conciliator, or the board itself, the Police Services Board, can go through arbitration to deal with if there's a difference between what they say they need to have policing and we say we can afford, or the city can afford as a council. So it's separate. I'm probably not gathering that as well as I could have, but it's we don't really have a say as council as to what they can do on the board.
And what about, just to add on to that, the structure of the board appointments? Who gets what appointment powers to that board?
That I believe we have 2 appointed through the city, 2 through the province. I think there's 1 from the community. I've not worked with the board, so I'm thinking that's what it's correct.
5 altogether? 5 altogether? Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So there were 16 eligible to retire, 3 have, so there's 13 that are still eligible to retire. In the lead up to that, we hired 9. Did we hire 9? You said 12, and then we didn't fund 3. Is it 9 in total, like your officer?
Once again, I didn't bring it to council at the time. I wasn't the chief at the time, but I believe we brought 12 to council. Then after discussion, we dropped it by 3, went down to 9.
So it would be 9. Okay.
That's what we were approved at.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks. So as you guys mentioned, as you gentlemen mentioned, you're not sure as to when these officers would retire, nor should you. So I appreciate those comments. The $670,000 you referenced that you identified that is an expenditure that you will be able to save or not spend or haven't spent, that was for travel, correct?
I think there's 2 numbers there. One was from the 2024 budget. We were $670,000 to the good on that operating budget. And in 2025, I'm going to say 640. I'll trust that your number is accurate. Those are obviously courses, travel, conferences, obviously some educational, and the courses are often will last for 3 spots. We've cut it down to potentially 1 or 2. A lot of those may have to be deferred, obviously, because we're required to meet certain training standards.
So do we have a sense of what the overall numbers are in the budget for travel for 24 and 25? Are they $670,000 and $640,000? Because I wouldn't suspect that there hasn't been any travel.
Oh, no, yeah, you're correct. So that's the amount we cut from those budgets. I don't have the figure in front of me. I can certainly provide that to you if you want to send it through.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
That'd be great.
When you speak of travel, it's like travel to courses. We're not just traveling. We're
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's professional development and the like. Yeah, I get it. And that's just for the force, not the board?
That's the force. The board usually goes to 1 or 2 conferences, a labor conference, and there's 1 more. We don't do very much travel at all as a board. But the training is very expensive. So the training, for example, could go up to $40,000. So if it's mandatory, then it's appreciated and we do it. If it's not mandatory, then, and we can wait. During COVID, nobody went anywhere, and you know what? There was considerable savings at that time as well. But we're going to do a better job of that for the next 2 or 3 years, and we're certainly going to reap some of those benefits, and until we can, because we have to continue to keep up with effective policing.
Understood. Mr. Mayor, I'll let you adjudicate whether this is an appropriate question or not. Out of the 13 officers that are eligible to retire, are any of those officers on WSIB?
I'll leave it to you, interim chief, to determine if you're able to provide that info. I don't know.
And it's fair.
Proper
If
question.
it's not a good question, that's cool.
It's not a good question.
Okay, perfect, thanks. So, and in terms of it, okay, so in light of that, I have another question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to either Tom Vare, CAO Vare, or head of HR, Mrs. Ottolino. Here at the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do we have an attendance management or attendance support program of any kind? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardy, yes, we do. Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the chief and or Mr. Bruno, is there any type of attendance management or attendance support program for the officers or civilians for that matter?
Yes, there is an attendance management policy with the Sault Ste. Marie City Police.
Perfect, great. So I appreciate the two of you gentlemen coming in to answer some questions that weren't easy ones. And I think the public will be very happy that you did as well. One thing that I don't accept though is I often hear that, and it's not just coming from the police board, I hear it other places, that some of these things are contractual and we don't have any control over them. I don't necessarily accept that because those are negotiations and we should be able to exercise some control. So that's not fully the truth as far as I can tell. Lastly, I just want to say that the rank and file do an excellent job. Mr. Mayor, I'll echo your sentiments. It is not a job that many could do, especially do very well. And I think a vast majority of our force and service does just that. But to cut to the chase, this was inaccurate information that was provided. The reasons being, I'm not quite so sure. There's only really one person who could answer that question. And the oversight has to be a little more fulsome. And I really appreciate everything. I see there's some members of the service there. So gentlemen, we thank you for what you do. And thanks guys for coming by. Thanks.
Gardy, Councillor Kinnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Bruno or Acting Chief Duguay. For the 2024 deficits, how much was that contributed from the software, encrypted cloud backups, and the body cams that we had?
So I was having a difficult time. You're asking about cloud backups?
Yes.
How much of the deficit was contributed to from the encrypted software and cloud backups? I think he means from the body cameras.
Yes.
So I don't believe that was listed on part of the deficits. So I mean, we can certainly get the number what that cost, but I don't have that today with me.
The deficit reasons are listed in the police summary at Appendix B, Councillor Kinnick, and that's not in there.
Okay. Yes, I understand it's not in there, but I believe when the last time Chief Stevenson was at our council meeting, he did mention these items. That they have to be renewed and the prices of them are going up. And I just wanted to maybe get some more information if that contributed at all to the deficit.
Get some information for you and relay that back at some point.
Okay, thank you very much. And just one more question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In the 2025 budget request that you guys came with to council, how much did we as city council reduce your original ask? I'm not sure if that'd be to Michelle or to the board.
I would be guessing what the original ask would be at this point. I just don't have, I don't want to send a number out that I'm not comfortable with, but I can get that for you and bring it back.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to know how much we reduced your budget, your operating budget by, and what the projected deficit is as of the new the budget council provided for. That's what I wanted.
Just for clarification, though, Councillor Kinnick, there was no reduction in their operational budget. It was a reduction of the increase.
Yes.
It was an overall increase of the operational
yes.
budget. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I look forward to those answers from you guys in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Interim Chief, the call on adequate and effective is made by who?
Police Service Board and the Chief of Police.
Okay. And so so the pressures that you've listed, I'm just going to go over that. The overtime has been an issue for many years, I believe.
Correct.
And so the fact that it contributed to this year's deficit is not terribly different from previous years.
Not be a surprise, no, sir.
The other numbers that contributed to the deficit are in the $300,000 range, other than the overcomplement number, which is nearly 800,000, 720,000. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So I would say the bulk of the reason this year is so much different than previous years is because of the overcomplement hires.
Just overcomplement hires, and I would suggest probably the smaller amounts from court and things like that, add a small amount to that. And the job evaluation, I think, was higher than expected as well.
Okay. And the overtime, or sorry, the overcomplement hires, as you understand it, because you weren't the chief at the time, as you understand it, is a decision that was made based on the desire to have adequate and effective policing in the community, or the requirement to provide adequate and effective policing in the community.
100%.
And so that's a call that the previous chief made.
Previous chief's responsible for providing adequate, effective policing in the Sault Ste. Marie, yes.
Right. Okay. I think that there has always been a requirement to provide adequate and effective policing. And the deficits have not always been, they've never been, frankly, to the level that they were last year. $2.9 million last year, 1.1 million the previous year. The year before that, a $300,000 surplus from the police services. And then we're getting into ancient history beyond there. So there is obviously, and in any of those years, you would have had a variance of occurrences. I'm not asking you specifically about those years, but the occurrences vary from year to year quite drastically.
Very drastically for me? I'm sorry, sir. Can you repeat the
The
question?
occurrences that you're responding to vary year to year quite drastically.
Yes, you could have 5 homicides one year and 1 the next. That being said, we've seen a rise in violent crime, not a lowering in violent crime. This year, our violent crime was up 14.7%, where overall crime was down 0.7%.
And I guess that's kind of the point I'm getting at is in the past, at least, absent last year, those changes in circumstances have been able to be managed generally in line with the budget. Sometimes $500,000 over, sometimes $300,000 as a surplus. You've always generally stuck to, tried to be tethered to the budget number that's been given.
Sir, I believe the budget's always consideration, but it's not a consideration over adequate and effective policing in this community, yes.
Okay. And I get that that's the response that a chief of police would give. But from a police service board perspective, my view at the very least, and I'm not intending to debate this with you, is that adequate and effective has two parts to it. Adequate, which is the number of officers, but effective is the cost at which you provide them. And so the police service board needs to be more attuned to what effective policing is in our community. And this has been, I think, the failure of the board from October 28th of last year to February, whatever day it was of this year, where we had adequate policing, certainly. But did we have effective policing? I think that remains an outstanding question. I'm going to suggest the answer is not, because we were completely untethered to the balance, the budget that was approved. And if we are going to simply be able to spend without anchoring ourselves to the number of the budget that's being approved, then there would be no budget set. On January 1, the clock would start ticking on costs, and it would end on December 31st. But that is not the system that's in place. The system that's in place, we approve a budget, we try and stick to it as closely as possible. And from the police service board perspective, that was not done. And so what has been done to change that now that this has been discovered, and I don't want to speak out of turn, Mr. Chair, but as soon as a deficit is known to finance staff, the police service board has to be advised. A hiring freeze, except where approved by the board, to ensure adequate and effective policing in the community. A discretionary spending freeze on things like travel, training where possible, but understanding that some training is required in order to maintain professional service standards. And I'm probably missing some, Chairperson Bruno. I know that there were 4 or 5 things that the police board did to ensure that future budgets stay more aligned with what was approved by council.
I think you got most of them. There might be one more. I'd have to look in my notes.
So that is the type of decision, the type of governance decision that ought to have been done in 2024 and probably 23, 22, 21, and 20 before that, that hadn't been being done. And it's left us in this position where, you know, as Councillor Spina said, this year, $3 million out of things that we would have been able to spend on the community or to alleviate future increases or to phase in increases in spending over time. We're not going to be able to do that because there was no regard for the number that was approved by council. It was simply to provide adequate policing without consideration for what the effective portion of that is. And that, in my opinion, is a failure of the board. And that, in my opinion, is what the board is responsible to make sure gets corrected going forward. So I look forward to doing that work with the people who are on the board on a go-forward basis. So with that, is there a vote on the year-end financials? All in favor? Any opposed? Councilor Gardy in opposition.
So that's a vote of 8-1. And then,
Thank you for coming.
is There's a motion by Councillors Caputo and Zagordo, whereas the Community Safety and Policing Act sets out the respective roles, responsibilities, and authority of the Police Services Board and the city in establishing the budget for police services. And whereas the Police Services Board is required to submit budget estimates to council in the form for the period and on a timetable determined by council. And whereas council's authority to establish an overall budget but not approve or disapprove of specific budget items does not limit council's ability to comment on specific proposed expenditures and cost reduction measures or express views in support of any measure to reduce costs. And whereas the Police Services Board has a statutory obligation to see that policing needs are met, and the city has a legal duty to see that the necessary resources are made available. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council requests that the Sault Ste. Marie Police Services Board submit quarterly financial reports to Council, and further that City Council requests that the Sault Ste. Marie Police Services work with the city's Chief Financial Officer regarding future budgets by providing budget requests by revenue and cost category with supporting details of variances to the prior year budget, trends of prior year budgets and actuals, current year estimated surplus, and budget challenges, reduction strategies, and efficiencies, and to provide greater clarity surrounding financials.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the resolution is very clear. I think that council and the community deserve more clarity, and that there is a bit more oversight to ensure that we're not landing in the same position we have in 2024 and potentially 2025. So that's why I put this forward, and that is why I hope that council will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor, who's Zagordo, seconder. Nothing to add. If I understand Councillor Caputo correctly, essentially what comes to the Police Service Board quarterly, you'd like to come to council, and you're requesting that of the Police Service Board. I can advise that as a member of the Police Service Board, I support that and will support that at the board. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously.
And that will put us back to consent.
All right, we are on the consent agenda. Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First one is Agenda 7.9, West End Treatment Plant, Phase 1. And through you to Mr. Romeo regarding the $290,000 engineering fee. Is this fee because of the length of the project, which was supposed to be completed by February 2023, and now we're in 2025? Is this an added cost to the engineering fee, consultant fee?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. So yeah, due to added scope to the contract, the contract administrator and inspection staff were required to be on site longer. So it's approximately a year and a half longer between the initial projected substantial completion date to the actual. So yeah, that would be largely due to added contract administration and inspection effort.
Just curious, is that normal, like a year and a half later? Just
through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruni, this is a pretty large scale project, and this project in particular, we're doing this in two phases. As you know, we do have phase 2 of the West End plant upgrades coming in the near future. So we're putting in large new components in phase 1 and integrating them with pretty old technology. And one of the main delays was that the contract ate up a lot of the contingency allowance, rebuilding a lot of the electrical to tie in the old parts of the plant to the new parts.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on 7.9? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through Mayor to Mr. Mano. Do we qualify for any other grants? Again, I know staff's excellent finding grants, but is there anything that you're looking at for grants that we can apply for?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, not for this project. This largely cleans this project up, but we were successful in a pretty significant grant for phase 2.
Okay. Do you remember how much that significant grant was for?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, it was in approximately 23 million.
That is significant. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Anyone else on 7.9? Seeing none. Councillor Bruni, other items on consent?
Yes, sir. Is it on?
Yep.
No light. Next one is 7.11, traffic calming prioritization. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. or Mrs. McCauley. I'm just going to speak on the Ward 4, where I'm more familiar with. There's 3 of them. They're Gooley Avenue from Chippewa Street to Core Road, approximately 23 kilometers over. 4th line from Aronson to Peoples Road, approximately 28 kilometers over. And Northern Avenue from Sackville to the Metro, you have approximately 23 kilometers over. And that's a school zone. Are these numbers dangerous for these roads? And why aren't we doing anything as we are with the other roads that have been identified?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. The recommendations that we are proposing with this list are the bollards. Some of these roads are not suitable for bollard installation. We don't look at them for the 3-lane road configuration. We have to look at alternative methods. At this point, we're concentrating on the bollard program for this year.
Okay. I guess my biggest concern is the Northern Avenue from Sackville to Metro. There is a school, library, etc. I guess I do have a worry for that road there. If the speed is 23 kilometers over on average, that's a concern of mine. So I'm just telling you.
Thank you.
Nothing's going to be done. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. And other councillors on 7.11? Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. McCauley. Ms. McCauley, if these roads are identified not to be suitable for bollards, what other alternatives are we looking at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo. For a 3-lane cross section, as you're aware, we did reduce it to a 3-lane cross section. This is showing over because it is a school zone. We do have a review underway of our school zones, so that will be coming back to council shortly with further recommendations, if any, as to how to improve that. That's kind of our options that we have available to us.
Okay. If the so we went, Northern Avenue was 4 lanes, yes?
Correct.
And we reduced it to 3 and that did not help.
Part of what happened in this case was that it was reduced at the time that it was 4 lanes, that we didn't have the school zone at a 40 kilometer. That was introduced, I think, about 7 years ago or so. I think that's when the legislation came in that allowed us to happen. I don't have the numbers offhand of what it was prior to that, but all literature says that lane reduction or the lane cross section does overall reduce speeds.
Okay. Would we be looking potentially, I think maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramil, would we be looking at adding things to the road like islands or something like that to reduce speed if the bollards are not appropriate and the road diet hasn't worked?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Caputo, I think at this point in the life of Northern Avenue, without a major upgrade like reconstruction, we would probably be looking to just added enforcement, working with our friends from police and through education and our campaigns that we put through the speed management task force, as well as, you know, enforcement through the school zone or community safety zone if it's changed to that.
Okay. Just a comment if I could. This is sort of society-wide, not just through the city. Neighborhood schools seem to be a thing of the past. And to me, if we were looking to relocate schools and keep children safe, we might want to put them in smaller neighborhoods rather than on Bennett Boulevard, on Baseline, on Northern Avenue, some of the busiest streets in town, and then wonder how we end up with these issues. I get that I don't get to choose where the schools go, but if I did, I would lean back to bringing them to neighborhoods that were going to be a little safer for children. And with that, I'm just going to encourage everyone who is watching and who is listening, drive carefully through a school zone, please. Our most precious assets are within those areas. And I promise you that the 10 or 20 seconds that you're going to save off your trip is not worth the life or the limb or whatever of a child. Please, please, please work with us and slow down in those school zones. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Other councillors on 7.11? Seeing none. Councillor Bruni, other items on consent?
I do have 8.4.2, but that's later on.
That's, that's after.
Yeah, I have two more, but later on.
Okay. Nothing in section 7?
No, sir.
Anyone else with items on consent? Councillor Caputo?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just 7.6, the 2023 and 2024 sustainability report and greenhouse gas emissions report. Hi, Ms. Cormier. So after reviewing this report, it is just evident to me that we need to do more. We seem to be stagnant. We've stated that we want to get to a net zero. But in my very humble and respectful opinion, we're not really doing much to get there. Would you say that's accurate, Ms. Cormier?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, as you'll see in the report, there are significant steps being done. Over the years, we've certainly been able to move the needle through energy efficiency retrofits, studies, purchasing of equipment such as electric ice resurfacers. We've got 5 chargers installed now for our city fleet for light duty vehicles. So we are making progress, but
just little by little.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say not, but.
Okay. One thing that I wanted to discuss with you, Ms. Cormier, is the introduction of the climate impact being put onto our council reports. And I just wanted to know, do you do the reviews of all council reports and give us the climate impact?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, at present, the climate impact statement was, just for context for those who don't know, this was adopted in January of 2023, and it's for relevant, it applies to relevant council reports. It was shared with senior leadership, and they distributed it to staff who regularly write council reports. I review a lot of the reports, in particular in the CDES department. We've got a good rapport going on, lots of capital projects, retrofits, things of that nature. It is not mandatory on all reports. It's at the discretion of the author of the report, but it was made aware to senior management and all facility managers to reach out to me for support as needed, and that continues to this day.
Okay, so you said it only applies to relevant council reports. Who decides what's relevant?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, when this became a thing, when this was instated in 2023, a backgrounder report was supplied to senior management as well as all facility managers by myself with questions to ask as it pertains to mitigation or adaptation. So mitigation is the reduction of emissions. Adaptation is to be building more resilient, with information to reach out to me for support. And that was shared with them.
Okay, great. I know myself, I'm going to keep my eye on that climate impact statement and ask more questions where that's involved. And I would encourage our staff to reach out to this wonderful resource we have with Ms. Cormier to get that climate impact and make sure that it is accurate for council and for the community. I just have one further question, and it would be for Mr. Ver. Mr. Ver, in the climate impact, is that related just to the corporation's climate impact, or should we be discussing community climate impact within there? Do you know what I mean?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, the numbers that we're seeing here have a reflection of the corporate impact. Those are the numbers we have direct control over. But certainly Emily is looking at and working with community partners as it relates to the community as a whole. And I let Emily add any commentary to that that she wants to.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Caputo. So our climate action plan, the Sault Ste. Marie Community Greenhouse Gas Emissions Reduction Plan, has 3 targets. It has an aspirational target of net zero by 2050, and that applies to both the corporation and the community. We also have an interim target of 10% corporate reduction by 2030. That was set in 2020, and 5% community reduction by 2030, and with a plan to reevaluate that come 2030. So the actions noted in the sustainability report pertain not only to what the corporation is doing within our operations, but projects and initiatives that are happening within the community. I'll give you an example. We're currently working on developing a community retrofit program that would impact homeowners to help them subsidize energy efficiency upgrades in their homes.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for those and try and ask more questions and push for your goal of net zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Anyone else on 7.6? Got a question, Ms. Cormier. If we had successfully reduced our consumption to levels that would have got us to our target for this year, but the province has changed the mix of energy used in producing electricity in Ontario, would that not have negated or offset the reductions that we otherwise were able to find?
Through you, Mayor, you are correct. The electricity generation mix in Ontario is currently consuming more natural gas to generate electricity, and that is impacting the emissions from electricity. The use of electricity is still significantly less emission intensive than the use of natural gas. When you look at our corporate emissions breakdown through buildings, outdoor lighting, and transportation, the majority, though we see an increase in electricity, the majority of that does come from the use of natural gas, as well as in our fleet, gasoline and diesel specifically. So I would say that though that does have an impact, it's more nominal. Our efforts need to be focused on reducing the consumption of fossil fuels.
Understood. And I think we're talking about different objectives here. Even if we achieved reductions in the use of fossil fuels, the electricity mix in Ontario, which is completely outside of our control, could offset reductions that we've got or that we've achieved.
Potentially. I would need to look at the math behind all of that. The IESO, the Independent Electricity Systems Operator, does have a mandate to work towards decarbonization of their offerings. You're seeing a lot more procurement outreach from the IESO for a greater renewable mix. But I'd have to drill into the details on that to answer that with full accuracy. The other thing that's not being accounted for in our emissions inventory are the potential offsets from green spaces.
So,
which is, sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say, so tree planting, things of that nature is not factoring in our overall reduction of carbon impact.
Correct. This inventory pertains specifically to the emissions associated to buildings, energy, and transportation.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Anyone else on 7.6? Okay, thank you, Ms. Cormier. Councillor Caputo, still on you?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Anyone else with items on consent? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Item 7.2, first quarter financial report, March 31st, 2025. Through you, Mayor, to Ms. Shelley Shell. There was a chart here, you talk about 2025 total assessment based on return roll and so forth. And I understand that for the first quarter, it's a zero assessment, if I understand correctly. Out of curiosity, when MPAC gives us a new assessment growth, for example, like in 2024, we were number 2 for Northeastern Ontario. We actually came in at about 62,172,124. I'm just curious, when do you start to incorporate the new assessment growth? Obviously, we know when buildings are built and when they are actually occupied, but roughly speaking.
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. What you're referring to is our supplementary billing. So this is your new growth that we're going to invoice out as we get it. So first we do our final billing, which is going to be happening in June, and then we'll start processing our supplementary bills. So we may have the information from MPAC. It usually doesn't start flowing till around April or so. But as soon as the final billing's done, then we'll start sending out the supplementaries for the assessment growth. But what you see right now in Mr. Facey's report, he reports on the assessment growth being very little. That is based on MPAC data that we have, not what we've built.
Okay. Well, I thought I heard something else. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I know that I don't want to go in the past, but that was impressive in 2024 what MPAC said about our assessment, new assessment growth. So lots of great building in the future. That's all on that one.
Anyone else on 7.2? Councillor Caputo, you started asking something about 7.2 in the previous discussion.
Thank you. In regards to this report, we also, the thing that people have been talking about most, we had a horrendous winter and there was the overage from Public Works for the winter control budget. I just want to say after, seeing what we saw today with police, I appreciate the immediate notification of letting us know that this is over budget. And I also wanted to let staff know that in my conversation with constituents about this, I did not hear one negative thing. Folks expected this. It was a wild winter. And I think you did your best for the community. We've talked about it a number of times around the council table, that Public Works did a great job for us. But again, I think kudos to you for that. And the unfortunate part is the $1.4 million overage, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Mother Nature is going to be kind to Sault Ste. Marie next year and maybe we can somehow make it up. But those are just my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Spino on 7.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along the same line, I did want to comment on that item as well, that line item, same one. I want to make sure that the public knows that this is at this point in time a projection on those, on that overage for 2025. The reality is the difficulty for some people to understand, and even myself prior to being on council, is that this is not a budget item that goes seasonal. This is a fiscal budget item. So seasonal being roughly from say October to well, this year, May almost, for winter, but it's actually a reset in January-ish, give or take, and goes January to January. The important thing is the information came forward at an early time when mitigation strategies can be put into place. So I think this is a great example of what can be done in the future working with other departments and other organizations within our community. The other part that's important to note for the Public Works team on this, there is no real planning they can do to mitigate snow. It comes and we don't have any control over that. It just happens. So we expect that the team goes out, clears our roads, clears our sidewalks, and ensures that it's safe for us to walk, cycle, and drive to work, to shop, to do other things in our community. And quite frankly, they did that this past year. So I know that we'll be all watching this line item closely. Let's hope, as Councillor Caputo said, that Mother Nature is kind to us between October and December, and this line item comes back into sway. However, I'm very confident that the team in Public Works will do everything they can to ensure that those numbers are mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Anyone else on 7.2? I just want to, not to repeat your points, Councillor Caputo or Councillor Spina, but this is different. And there was some confusion over the weekend as to whether or not these are similar circumstances where the police budget was over and now the snowplow budget is over, snow removal, I should say. And it's different because with police services, we learned of the deficit 3 months after the end of the year. And with snow removal, we're being told in May that by the time we get to December, we may be $1.4 million over budget. So it does give us time to plan and mitigate where necessary. So do appreciate that information coming to us early. And to be fair to the police services, they too now are projecting a deficit for this year out for us. And that's would have been great last year, of course, but we weren't in that position last year. And so going forward, this type of information as early as possible is much appreciated. Okay, Councillor Caputos. No, sorry, Councillor Hollingsworth, still on you. 7.2 was your last one?
That's correct. 7.5, Ingham Clerk National Annual Report. I understand Miss Kathy Fisher is not here tonight. Correct. So can I put it through you to Mr. Anderson or Tourism?
Mr. Lamminger, Miss Maioni, I think.
Okay. Just a simple question. When I read through the report, I think I saw that the cruise ship visits are going to be down, and I'm just curious to know why. Or did I misunderstand that when I read that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, that is what is projected. I am uncertain of the reason, but I can certainly find out.
Okay, thank you. And if I can make just a positive comment. I just want to give a shout out to Miss Kathy Fisher and her whole team and the board. Basically, a huge congratulations. As you can see from the numbers, she once again has basically created a surplus. And for those that have attended the different events at the Emerton Clerk National House and so forth, they were just incredible. The creativity, such as the Junior Gardener program, the Lilac and Lavender program, which is sold out. She's very good at, or they are good at successful grants, like all our staff here at the City Hall. Also, the work that they've done or doing on the Clerk Blockhouse, the new Cedar. But the most one is the digital vision one. A lot of new energy, a lot of new revamp in the digital vision to basically educate our community and visitors about our history. So I just want to give a shout out to that. The team over there continues to be creative, and I just think if you haven't visited lately, you have to go down, and don't forget to give a donation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. And I will note with kudos to the team at the Ermiton Clark National Historic Site that this year's revenues are higher than they were pre-COVID for the first time. So nice to see a rebound there, finally, after 6 years. Anyone else on 7.5? Okay, Councillor Hollingsworth, other matters on consent?
Just quickly, 7.8 contract for reconstruction of People's Road.
That's been pulled.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll wait then.
Other items?
Nope, that's everything.
Okay. Other councillors with items on consent? Okay, seeing none, we can have a vote on the matter. All in favor? That carries.
That will bring us to agenda item 7.8, the contract for reconstruction of People's Road. I'll read the main motion first, and then there is an amendment. I've got a motion by Councillors Bruni and Zagordo, resolved that the report of the Manager of Design and Transportation Engineering dated May 12, 2025 concerning the reconstruction of People's Road be received, and that contract 2025-2E be awarded to Avery Construction Limited. And the proposed amendment by Councillors Caputo and Bruni, that the motion be amended by adding the words, and that council directs the reconstruction be completed with the existing 4-lane configuration, not a 3-lane configuration as proposed in the staff report.
All right, so we are on the amended motion, but you can ask questions of the report, given that if we vote on the amended motion, that'll be the end of the report. Councillor Caputo, I'll let you go first since this is your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start out by saying I think that I am open to conversation and hearing what advantages our engineers are finding in 3 lanes versus 4 lanes. For me, the congestion on People's Road just seems too great to move it down to 3 lanes. I worry very much about bottlenecking, especially up by 3rd line and where our place and Ecom and all of that is. There's a lot of industrial vehicles that are going up that way. A lot of folks living in that area who are already complaining about how tough it is to get out onto People's Road. This is sort of what's been brought forward by the constituents in Ward 3 in speaking to people living around that area. These are their concerns. They are worried that the 3-lane configuration just would make life a lot more difficult in that area. So I brought this forward, and I hope that we can have a fulsome discussion about it.
Councillor Bruni as the seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have concerns. We have 3 roads that exit the People's Road: Johnson, Churchill, and Elliott. And we have 1 road on the east side, which is Pennell. We also have a railway crossing that will also slow the traffic down. And those 4 streets will have difficulty exiting on the People's Road, going north especially. So I have concerns. I did have constituents call me that they would like to have the People's Road as is, just resurfaced. Well, the sewers replaced and resurfaced would be the ideal for them. I don't know why. I was told that if you go down the 3 lanes, it will slow traffic down. Possibility, but it'll be difficult to get on the People's Road. Right now, we're in the process of looking at Sackville, but until then, constituents, taxpayers use 3 roads, the Churchill, Johnson, and the Elliott, to get on the 3rd line once they're on People's Road. So just That's my concern. I would prefer if we keep it at 4 lanes for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Bruni. Councilor Hollingsworth, you had questions on this?
Not actually on the resolution, but on the report.
Go ahead.
Is that fair? Okay. Through you, Mayor, to, I guess, Miss Maggie McCall?
I think Mr. Rumia will probably answer them.
Okay, to Mr. Rumia. Can you just re-educate me, when we do a construction such as what we're going to do on Peoples Road, what type of guarantees or warranties do we have that protect the city from the quality of work that's done on a road? Can you just bring me up to speed on, do we have a warranty for 5 years, 2 years, just very high level?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Hollingsworth, we generally get a 12-month warranty on the road features.
Okay, so after 12 months, if it's 13 months, 2 years, then that's it.
After 12 months, we would do it, before 12 months is expired, we would do a comprehensive review of everything with our camera in the sewers, as well as everything on the surface. We would get the contractor to rectify everything that we didn't see that we saw as out of spec. And then, yeah, we'd be on our own.
Okay, thank you.
Hollingsworth, other councillors on 7.8? Mr. Rumiel, oh, sorry. Trying to see, is it Councillor Dufour? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering if we could hear more from either Mr. Rumiel or Ms. McCauley on what the implications of changing the design at the point of contract tender would be.
So through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Dufour, what would the implications be if we changed it after the tender award or what in general, what are the
point of tender at like?
So that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
Minimal. We're in either configuration, the width would be the same. It would be the way the lane configuration was painted.
Okay, and what would be the implications of changing the design consideration when it comes to traffic calming and our active transportation plan?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, People's Road, the last time we did the traffic counts was right around 10,000, just under 10,000 vehicles per day. That would be the average annual daily traffic. That fits in well with doing a road diet. I think that is a little bit less than a lot of the sections of Queen Street that we did, 12, 13 years ago now. And that road is functioning very, very well. Generally, road diets improve flow, reduce rear end collisions, and as we said, reduce speeds, observe traffic speed, maybe notwithstanding the section of Northern Avenue you're asking about earlier, but it does. Anecdotally, the speeds usually drop. So we'd miss out on that. The big consideration that our Public Works Department has expressed is that road is a nightmare to maintain in the winter. So you have a 4-lane road that essentially operates as a 2-lane road until they can find the time to move snow back to the curb and take it away. So with the width not changing, the 3 lanes, we're not adding bike lanes or taking any space for bicycles. That's not what we're proposing. The 3 lanes would be 3 wide lanes that would have some snow storage that could function 12 months out of the year as a 3-lane road.
So snow storage would not change, or the amount of snow storage that changes would, in the opinion of engineering, not be material?
So Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, the snow storage would be considerably increased with the 3-lane section.
Okay, so it would be better than with a 4-lane design.
For winter maintenance, correct.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Rumiel, on the traffic calming element of 3-lane roads versus 4 lanes? It seems to me that a 3-lane road would be easier to pull out onto rather than a 4-lane road where you have to check for 2 lanes of oncoming traffic, but I'm not a traffic engineer.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, I think a great comparison is Queen Street. There is several side streets on Queen Street. We have heard some frustrations at times that with the spacing of the traffic signals, it's tricky to exit. But for the most part, that road has been functioning, I would say, excellent over the last 10 to 15 years. I'm not sure, it was maybe even 12 years now. Most people that drive it every day say it's better than it was when it was 4 lanes. You don't have that jockeying around to try to get around left turning vehicles in the inside lanes. And
Okay. Does a larger amount of heavy industrial and commercial traffic on People's Road factor into the lane design at all? I know we've got, like Fisher Wavy in that area. We've got SIS. We've got, AECon. A lot of large commercial properties there. Does the road design, does 3 lanes fit better with that kind of commercial traffic, or is there a trade-off there?
through you, Mr. Mayor, these are going to be wide lanes on the 3-lane configuration to accommodate tractor trailer width vehicles, heavy industrial vehicles. We're not proposing, like on Queen Street, to put painted bike lanes, which would take some of that space back. So these would be 3 very comfortable lanes for heavy traffic to utilize.
Okay, and my last question for People's Road and Second Line for the intersection. Would the 3-lane design feeding into that existing intersection, where would the lanes change, and would it allow more vehicles to cross that intersection, or would it allow fewer vehicles to cross that intersection with each life cycle?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Dufour, I'm not positive what the geometry is being proposed right at Queen Street, at Second Line. Maggie might have that. I see her walking towards the mic now, so I'll let her take that question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, the intersections won't change aside from the northbound, which is 2 lanes currently. Southbound, I think, turns into a left turn, a straight through, and a right. That would stay the same. The traffic evaluation has looked at that intersection. It has indicated no change in service.
Okay, and my last question is about Third Line in People's Road. Does staff foresee any changes to that intersection, or are we going to be waiting until Sackville has been concluded?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Dufour, given that is phase 2 of the project, it's going to be tackled next year. We're doing some of the analysis on the Third Line intersection. The warrant calculation for whether we need to add some traffic control there is being done. So I don't really have that to share yet, but it is being looked at very closely.
Okay, understood. So if are there any things that council should consider when examining the question of a 3 or 4 lane configuration with regard to that phase 2? It sounds like regardless of which design we choose here tonight, improvements to that intersection are going to be looked at.
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Dufour, nothing to add with respect to the 3-lane or 4-lane for phase 2. Yeah, we are looking closely at the intersection for whether traffic controls needs a change there.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I believe, Mr. Tonazo. The vehicle count, I think you said, was average 10,000 a day.
It's in that neighborhood.
Sorry, Mr. Ramil, I apologize. Yeah, sorry about that. I used it close to each other, I guess. Was there any count for pedestrians?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Spina, I don't have the pedestrian counts. I believe they are low, though.
They are low? Okay. I understand the comparison between Queen Street and People's Road. However, just judging from my own perspective and looking at it, Queen Street does not really have any neighborhoods that run to the south, only really neighborhoods that run to the north. People's Road will have neighborhoods, or does have neighborhoods, that run east and west from People's Road, and potential pedestrian traffic. You have convenience stores, you have the Rexall on the other side, there's schools that are in the other neighborhoods. So my concern is, if we do reduce to 1 lane in each direction, is there going to be an unending lane or an unending line of motor vehicles traveling that pedestrians just simply won't be able to cross? Because from my recollection of the area as well, there's also not a pedestrian crossover anywhere other than Second Line.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Spina, Yeah, they would be a need to cross at controlled crossings, and that would be second line.
Only second line. So between third line and second line, we don't have a single pedestrian crossing. And if we're at now we're going to have quite a significant line of slower moving traffic. How do we expect people in the apartment buildings to travel from side to side to cross what would be a very wide road?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, Maggie, do you have information on the planning of PXOs?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina. So we don't have any plans for a PXO. Generally, PXOs crossing 3 lanes, I think, are preferred to crossing 4 lanes. As far as the long line of traffic, I guess you can argue that potentially crossing 4 lanes of traffic with 4 lanes of active traffic is a lot different than crossing 2 lanes with a center turn lane that may or not have vehicles in it.
We don't have information either way.
On a pedestrian crossing, we have none planned now, but that doesn't mean that we can't add it if we see a need for it in the future.
And is there potential, and I don't think anyone may have the information for this offhand, is there a potential for traffic now? I'm thinking people either coming home or going to work in the morning, all of a sudden getting stopped at, as Councillor Bruni mentioned, the railway crossing. Now, of course, traffic would back up, but back up in 2 lanes. It's a little more manageable once the train is gone. If it's a single lane, this line may be going for quite some distance.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, yes, that's a consideration.
Okay, and is there any mitigation for that, or is that even possible?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, not sure that we've done a model for that, but we could model that and see under worst case scenarios how far traffic would back up. That would be simple to do for the traffic consultant. Don't believe we have done it.
But in your opinion, it wouldn't have a major impact on travelers?
It's a distance.
What I do know is that it's a fairly low volume crossing. Just in our plans with the railroad company, they've got some hopes for future expansion, but it's pretty minimal crossing traffic for trains.
Meaning there's not a lot of trains coming by there?
Yeah, it's the Agua Canyon train, so which that's, I think, one of their main focuses, and then they have a few other businesses that they work with.
Really, maybe only a month or 2 a year in the fall, if it's Agua Canyon train.
They do have some businesses that they service up in that area, but I understand that we're going to be closing the crossing for construction, and we're closing it, I think, for about a week, so which means we're moving the trains, and that can be accommodated, so it's not that much traffic.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, it's 700 meters from the tracks south to People's Road. So I mean, yeah, it would be a long queue, but I think there's a decent amount of capacity in the road to, and side streets that, same as other railway crossings in the city where you're backing up past the aligning intersections.
And I guess in reality, there's not another traffic control until 4th line.
Meaning
traffic would flow.
At this time,
endlessly. No. Like if it was backed up and the train moved, there's no traffic control is going to back it up again.
Correct.
Okay. The only other, and I don't know if you can answer this as well through you, Mr. Mayor. One of the thoughts I had in my mind, if this were to be a 3-lane project, we know, and this happens on Queen Street often as well, and I'm not suggesting it's against the law, people will use the passing lane, or sorry, the turning lane for passing. And in fact, some people will just travel in the turning lane for a period of time. My concern is somebody going south to north in that passing lane potentially, and we've got a very, very, very blind point between the bottom of the hill, roughly where the tracks are, to the top of that hill. Is there anything being done to mitigate that potential? This is where my mind goes to pedestrians potentially trying to cross, not seeing a car coming, or potentially 2 vehicles in opposing directions traveling and both entering the turning lane.
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, I think the sight lines are adequate there. And I mean, what you just described with respect to like traveling in the turn lane isn't really any different than any length of part of the Great Northern Road. Like that's a 5-lane with a shared a shared turn lane. But we see that on Queen Street. See people still doing it.
Right, but that's a flat portion of road, not something
There's
with
a
a
pretty good
blind.
grade difference around the park and at Lake Street as well. There's some site issues on Queen Street too.
And we have pedestrian controls on Queen Street.
Correct.
Right. So that would be my concern with that. And what my mind goes to is the reconstruction of the second line hill, where the pitch of the hill was essentially changed to allow for greater line of sight and allow for trucks to stop getting stuck in the winter on that road. Is that something being proposed here, or will that remain the same?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Despina, there's not a significant grade difference, change being proposed on People's Road.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Councillor Gardy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramil. Mr. Ramil, do you have a sense of how the traffic volume on People's Road would compare to Wallace Terrace?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardy, like I said, People's Road, we were just under 10,000 is what we observed. I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And in the report, the traffic report we did for Wallace Terrace, I believe it was at Lyons and Patrick, around that area. So sort of one of the busier sections. That it was 12,500 vehicles per day. Now, that's annual average daily traffic. That's a number. That's not the most significant metric. Like they do drill down on the metrics, look at turning movement counts, look at peak hour, those types of things. But yeah, comparing the two, 9,000 to 10,000 to 12,500.
Okay, thanks.
So slightly less.
I appreciate it. But it's very similar to Queen Street.
People's Road?
Yeah.
Those were comparable traffic
In that
counts
one count,
at the time, yeah.
Okay, I'm of the opinion that I'm with staff on this one. I don't see the reason as to not go with what's being recommended here. I travel People's Road often, and it's busy like other streets when, from 7:30 to 8:45. But outside of that, I don't see the need for the current configuration that we have. One of the things that we're always talking about here, and I think some of the members of the service that are in the audience might agree, is that like people drive too fast, right? And they speed. And I can tell you, and I think you would appreciate it if you drive around town, areas that we have reduced lanes, people inevitably drive more slowly. And I think what's causing more of the accidents and more of the issues are people going too fast. And I think we need to do what we need to do to slow down traffic. And I'm glad Councillor Dufour, I should say, asked the question about the intersection, because that was my only concern. So I'm not in favor of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. Councillor Zagordo, did I see your hand up? Mr. Ramil, there's no proposed on-street bike paths here, but there's a proposed grade separated multi-use path?
Yeah, behind the curb, Mr. Mayor. There'd be a hub trail type pathway.
On which side of the street? East or west?
It is on the, sorry, my details person.
It'll be on the west side of the road, and then we're putting sidewalk on the east side.
So where the sidewalk currently is will be a multi-use path, and then there will be a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street.
That is correct.
Gotcha. Yeah, I travel People's Road every day. That's where my son's daycare is. And every morning I see vehicles trying to turn into what used to be the Max. I think it's an H&R Block and Domino's now. And then there's vehicles backed up to Churchill. And if you're traveling north on People's, wanting to turn west onto Churchill or onto Johnson, there are often vehicles backed up from second line blocking Churchill. Sometimes almost as far back as Johnson. And so if you've got vehicles in the turn lane there, going southbound, turning east onto Second Line, and you've got vehicles wanting to turn westbound, traveling north, it's going to back traffic up on People's Road. And I think that's a disservice compared to what is currently there, and a reduction in service that I don't think is warranted. I don't think I get the snow storage thing. We all understand Wellington Street is also a difficult street to navigate in the winter. It's the reality of living here in the winter. I don't think changing the lane configuration to store snow is the proper use of our resources. I would rather see us use 4 lanes as we're able to, especially if we are providing services for for active transportation outside of the lane widths. And so I support Councillor Caputo, Councillor Bruni's motion. I think that the road functions properly, gives people the ability to get around turning vehicles currently, and that ability could be lost if we go to a 3-lane configuration. So I don't see the need for it, and I think that it works equally as well, or I believe it'll work equally as well to keep it as a 4-lane. So I'm supporting Councillor Caputo and Councillor Bruni's motion. So with that, we can have a vote on, are we voting to amend?
We're going to vote first on the amendment.
Okay, so this is to add the language to the main motion. So all in favor of adding the language to the main motion? Let's hold our hands up there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Okay, well, that's 8. And 1 opposed? No? Okay, that's 9. So everybody was in favor of that.
Councillor Dufour, I have
Yes, opposed that.
opposed.
Yes, correct. Thanks.
And then the main motion as amended.
So that is resolved that the report of the Manager of Design and Transportation Engineering dated May 12, 2025 concerning reconstruction of People's Road be received and the contract be awarded to Avery Construction Limited, and that Council directs the reconstruction be completed with the existing 4-lane configuration, not a 3-lane configuration as proposed in the staff report.
Okay, all in favor? That carries. Any opposed? Okay, still carries.
Councillor Gardy
It's opposed.
opposed, and Councillor Spina in favor. So that carries with Councillor Gardy opposed. So that will take us to 8.4.1, which is the 2025 Road Resurfacing Program. I have a motion by Councillors Bruni and Zagordo, resolved that the report of the Director of Engineering dated May 12, 2025 concerning 2025 Road Resurfacing Program be received, and that the 2025 Road Resurfacing Program be approved.
Councillor Bruni?
8.4.1, right? Road resurface. Question through you to Mr. Romeo regarding Moss Road. Moss Road was resurfaced approximately 10 years ago with Class C asphalt. And we're doing it again, which I'm sure all the residents on Moss Road are thrilled about. But why can't we improve it to a Class B asphalt? Is there a big cost difference?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, the Class C being the surface treated roads, as opposed to what we call Class B, are like rural cross-section asphalt roads with ditches. Difference in cost would be about 1/5 of the cost. So 20% of the cost of doing constructing the road to a asphalt standard, like the Class B, they're getting 5 times the value by surface treated roads. And to put, like, I grabbed another number that I think might help you, is we have 109 kilometers of surface treated roads in the city. We can essentially resurface them 5 times with surface treatment before we can we can resurface them with asphalt. So that maybe goes a long way.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up question would be, from Third Line West to Rossmore, Class A was used. Why would they use it there and stop at Third Line West? And now from Third Line West, we're going to use Class C asphalt.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bernie, that was because of the drainage issue and the hill. It really grenaded, it fell apart fast on the hill from the time we did it maybe 12 years ago. So I think we'd maybe done repairs on that hill twice since the resurfacing of it.
I guess the issue I have is if you're traveling north, the last bend before you get the fourth line, it's always washed out there. And putting Class C asphalt is not going to do it justice. It will be washed out because the water is getting underneath. I'm just wondering, would better asphalt be better? You know, and you don't have to do it every 10 years.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bernie, 100%. To spend 5 times the cost would give us a better product for sure. But we have 109 kilometers of surface treated roads. So our surface treatment program right now was to, as budget allows, convert the ones that are currently bus routes to Class B, and to continue to surface treat them as required. And if we're getting 10 to 12 years out of a road like Moss, I mean, that's not too far off. Like resurfacing an arterial asphalt road is in 15 years.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilor Bruni. Anyone else on 8.4.1? Councilor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Emile. Under background in your report, you said over the years the need to resurface roads has continued to grow and the rising cost of constructions has diminished the effectiveness of the resurfacing program. Can you just elaborate? If I understand this correctly, basically the reason it's not as effective is because one, cost of material has gone up. So hence we can't do as many resurfacing. And two, perhaps have you looked at other up-to-date methods with the construction company? Kind of going on Councilor Bruni's idea, but can you just elaborate diminish the effectiveness?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Hollingsworth, for sure it has been difficult to keep up with the deteriorating roads every year. A couple more roads are added to the deficient now list. When the cost of inflation has been working against us as well. So yeah, I would agree. It's been tough to maintain a program that is getting ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor Hollingsworth. Other councilors on 8.4.1? Seeing none, we can have a vote on the matter. All in favor? That carries.
Agenda item 8.4.2, capital road maintenance. It's a resolution by Councilors Hollingsworth and Bruni. Whereas investments in our roads are critical because they are our lifeline, and whereas good roads are crucial for economic development, social access, and safety. And whereas municipal roads facilitate the movement of goods and people, connecting neighborhoods and enabling access to essential services like healthcare, education, and employment. And whereas well-maintained roads contribute to safer driving conditions, reduce vehicle maintenance costs, and enhance overall quality of life. And whereas the increasing costs to maintain capital assets like roads can't be addressed through property tax alone, it is recognized that city staff continuously seek grants to cover the cost of repairing roads. And whereas it is important that the city of Sault Ste. Marie continue to carry out its responsibility to invest in core infrastructure such as roads, now therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to report back at the August 11, 2025 council meeting regarding the following. Summarizing how much funding council has allocated to the capital transportation budget for the last 5 years, broken down between grants and non-grant funds, specifying grants with amounts the city has received over the last years, stating the percentage of roads considered to be high, medium, and low risk of needing repair, capacity of contractors for construction, approximating how much of a dollar increase that would be per kilometer, and outlining the best financial practices council could consider at budget time to finance the goal of fixing a high portion of roads by a set year. That is issuing municipal bonds, incurring debt, etc.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. The reason I brought this up is because I think it's fair to say everyone around this table is concerned about our roads. And constituents obviously have been talking to us about potholes. In the previous report, we just had our engineering department talking about that over the past few years. The engineering division has requested increase for basically capital towards roads, resurfacing, construction, and they, I believe, received about 0.5 last year. And so basically, I bring this up now so that we can start preparing for this critical discussion. I know that staff behind the scenes are already working on this. I do understand that and appreciate that. But again, for the budget time, I'd rather know all the facts now, in all fairness, instead of waiting on the eve of the budget. I hope we can start some creative thinking that will give staff the tools they need. I feel their pain. They've been asking since I've been on council every year for an increase. Now, we do have a challenge. We just heard about the police budget. I appreciate that. But we are still responsible for the infrastructure of our municipality. It's not just resurfacing, it's the underground as well. We do have responsibility as a municipality to work as best as we can to ensure our core infrastructure is high on our priority list. Again, I'm not throwing the staff under the bus. I am not. I'm just trying to give them basically some more tools, a chance to dive into this. And I also understand that the Ontario government has already been knocking at our door for, I believe, a plan on how we're going to do infrastructure and capital spend. But I also want to say that I know everyone, again, I believe, cares about our roads. And I just want to send the message back to our community that we are working behind the scenes, and I look forward to having this report in August. And basically, also I want to congratulate or basically say that, you know, our city staff, they do work closely with the PUC. So when there is a road, a water main that needs to be replaced, they work in conjunction so that they're using the basically the time effectively in mitigating the costs and spreading the costs. So as you know, staff said in the previous report, they have been asking year after year. And I just want to be able to hopefully give them the chance to, once again, give us the facts in August so we can properly dive into it and debate it. So I hope I have everyone's support. Thank you.
Councilor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. I'm honored to second this with Councillor Hollingsworth regarding this resolution. I'm excited to find out which percentage of roads are considered to be high, medium, or low risk needing repair. I think we all know that the last month has been challenging with the phone calls and the emails we've been receiving regarding the condition of our roads and our infrastructure. So I think this will come forward. It's going to be way before budget time, and then we can make informative decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Bruni. Any other councilors? Seeing none, we can have a vote on the matter. All in favor? That carries.
And Councilor Dufour? There he goes. Okay. Okay. That brings us to agenda item 9.1, the portrait of King Charles. Got a motion by Councillors Kinnick and Hollingsworth, whereas Canada is a Commonwealth member under the monarchy with His Majesty King Charles III as the sovereign and head of state, and whereas the Crown is a foundational element of Canada's independent constitutional framework representing the enduring principle of responsible government and the rule of law. And whereas the presence of the monarch's official portrait in public institutions such as municipal council chambers, serves as a symbol of Canada's constitutional order, heritage, civic responsibility, and sovereignty. And whereas King Charles III is scheduled to deliver the speech from the throne to open the 45th Parliament of Canada on Tuesday, May 27, 2025, which marks the first time since 1977 that a reigning monarch will personally deliver the speech in Canada. And whereas it is customary and appropriate to display the official portrait of the reigning monarch in government offices and institutions across Canada, including at the municipal level, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Sault Ste. Marie restore the portrait of the King to the council chambers before His Majesty King Charles III's arrival in Canada, Monday, May 26, 2025, for the throne speech on Tuesday, May 27, 2025.
Councillor Kinnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This year, there's been 2 elections. With these elections came a lot of fear-mongering, partisanship, threats of annexation, and talk of separation. With the conclusion of the federal election and another minority government, we must embrace Canadian symbols, tradition, culture, and heritage to unite the country. I thought it was a brilliant idea of Prime Minister Carney unifying Canadians by asking King Charles III to deliver the throne speech to open the 45th Parliament of Canada. This is a classy elbows up move by showing sovereignty with the presence of our sovereign. Now it's our turn as City Council to do our part in our confederation by displaying a portrait of King Charles III, our head of state, for his throne speech and assert Canada's independence. Before I finish my remarks, I would just like to thank everyone who reached out to Councillor Hollingsworth and myself over the weekend. We had an overwhelming positive support from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Councillor Hollingsworth.
I believe Councillor Kinnick has summarized it well, and it's part of our history. We talked about being proud of being Canadian, and we have demonstrated that with the elbows up. And basically, our roots go back, obviously, centuries. And I have to mention this, but you know, the War 1812 gave us a real recognition. And hypothetically, if you know the British weren't there to help us fight the War 1812, where would we be? We'd probably be the free 51st state. So let's continue on being proud of our history. And we have a great leader right now on our walls, our chief. Let us, recognize our Canadian history and know that it just reiterates our independency and that we are Canadian and we are like the elbows up. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I recognize and respect the historical significance of Canada's relationship with the monarchy, I think it's pertinent that we also recognize the first people of this nation. Indigenous people have requested an apology from the British monarch for the Crown's role in the residential school system and its impact on Indigenous peoples. They argue for recognition of the Crown's historical responsibility for the harm caused by the residential school system. While King Charles has acknowledged failures in handling the relationship with Indigenous people, the monarch has yet to apologize. Today, I stand with our Indigenous brothers and sisters and respect them as the first people who have inhabited this land since time immemorial. Until the monarchy properly apologizes to Indigenous people in Canada, I will not support the hanging of the royal portrait, and I would encourage my council colleagues to stand strong with First Nations people across Turtle Island and wait to hang this portrait until an apology is issued. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't repeat any comments made by my colleague, Councillor Caputo, but I will echo what she has said, and I do stand in agreement of that.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Councillor Segordo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not be supporting this motion this evening, and the reasons for that are actually stated in the motion itself. And if you'll indulge me, the Crown is the sovereign, the head of state. The Crown is a fundamental element of Canada's independent constitutional framework. The Crown represents responsible government and the rule of law. and a crown portrait represents a symbol of Canada's constitutional order and sovereignty. So is it reasonable to think that the crown would support Canada at a time when our sovereignty has been threatened? I think so. Maybe not to the world or to the American government, but at least to the people of Canada, and sharing some words of encouragement and support would have definitely be appreciated, and that has not occurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Segurdo. Other councillors, questions, comments? When I was first elected, we used to, in 2014, our inaugural in 2014 and 2018, we were bagpiped into the council chambers when our swearing in happened. I hate to tell this story with Ian McKenzie in the gallery as a good Scotsman who no doubt enjoys the occasional bagpipe. But I was elected in 2022 as mayor and decided to change that practice. We walked into an Indigenous drumming to better represent the history of this area where there has been governance happening since time immemorial. And that is a reason why just before I was elected, Queen Elizabeth's portrait came down, and there was the precedent would have been to put up King Charles's subsequent to my election, but rather than do that, we did cultural competency. We did the SETI program with Garden River First Nation, and we've put up the picture of Chief Shingwak, who represents a much more significant role in our local history than the Crown does. And for 2.5 years, nobody noticed until I mentioned it on Twitter. So it's ironic that we were able to, it's astonishing, in fact, that we were able to get all this governance done without the King's picture up. And yet now it is a necessary symbol for us to properly conduct ourselves. So I don't think that it has the impact that it is conveyed to be having. And I think that the photos that do adorn our walls represent a much more significant part of our history than a photo of King Charles could. So for that reason, I'm voting against this motion. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? That's defeated.
So that is defeated 5-4. I've got councillors Hollingsworth, Dufour, Bruni, and Kinnock in favor, and opposed Mayor Shoemaker and councillors Spina, Caputo, Segurdo, and Gardy.
Thank you, Council.
That brings us to agenda item 9.2, OPP Costing. It's a motion by councillors Spina and Kinnock, whereas a safe community free of crime and social disorder is beneficial for all residents of and visitors to the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And whereas the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service was founded as a municipal police service for the city of Sault Ste. Marie in 1871, and whereas year over year, the cost of policing in the city of Sault Ste. Marie has risen at a rate higher than the rate of inflation, and whereas the rising costs of police services must be paid by taxpayers, and whereas the rising cost of policing in the city of Sault Ste. Marie is not sustainable. And whereas the Ontario Provincial Police provide policing service across the province along with the ability to provide additional resources, and whereas a priority of council and city staff is to ensure that tax dollars are spent in a fiscally responsible way while exploring all options to provide services that will enhance the safety of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the CAO be directed to send a letter to Ontario's Solicitor General to request pricing for OPP services for the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and further that copies of the letter be sent to the Sault Ste. Marie Police Services Board, the interim Sault Ste. Marie Police Chief, and the Sault Ste. Marie Police Association.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps before we begin, Madam Clerk, is there the potential to have a friendly amendment to that motion to include all other associations within the service? I know there's not just one association, there's multiple.
So instead of, and the Sault Ste. Marie Police Association, what are?
I would say, and the Sault Ste. Marie Police Associations, plural, and the Senior Officers Association, please.
And police associations and, sorry?
Senior Officers Association. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I know some of this conversation may end up duplicating itself as a result of the conversation we had a little bit earlier today, but I think it's important to try and hold these a bit separate. Even though they do relate to each other, I think it's important to hold some of the information separate, so I'm going to do my best to do that. One of the things I want to make certain today that we are very, very clear about, that the intention behind this motion is nothing more than council doing due diligence for an expense line item to the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie. And I don't want in any way, shape, or form to downplay the importance of the police services within our community or the importance of the job that everyone within the police service does. But what we do have to note is that currently the police services budget alone makes up 27% of the entire municipal budget in the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And any time that a line item attracts that much of our budget, certainly it's going to attract attention. And certainly when there is a multi-million-dollar overage to that budget, it's something that City Council has to look at, and has to look at finding whatever information is available publicly or otherwise to make sure that we are making the best decisions to be fiscally responsible to the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie. As I mentioned earlier, we do know that in recent years, the police services budget has risen from about $25.5 million to $39.6 million. And with overages, we're looking at $41.6 million for 2025 and over $40 million for 2024. Those numbers, when they're extrapolated and spent and averaged out against the province, when we look at municipalities across the province, the people of Sault Ste. Marie, prior to knowing the overages, we're paying, and this is according to a BMA study that has been publicly posted, the people of Sault Ste. Marie pay $463 per capita for police services within our city. Of the 13 other comparable communities to our size, the provincial average is $277. So we're paying a significant amount more in Sault Ste. Marie. In fact, of the entire province, of the entire list of cities provided in that study, there's only one community, with the exception of Dryden, which I'll talk about in a moment, that has a higher per capita rate than the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and that's Barrie alone. There's no other city that pays more per capita for policing services than Sault Ste. Marie in the entire province right now, according to that study. It's something that I think is important that we need to look at. And it's something that I think is actually incumbent upon us. We know that as elected officials, we are responsible to have these difficult conversations. We have to talk about things that are going on in our city and ensure that we are doing the best for our community. When we look at potentially getting a costing for OPP services, we're gathering information. We're gathering information that's going to help us make decisions when budget time comes. There's a potential that they can come back and give us a number that's higher than $463 per capita. There's a potential that they could come back and give us a number that's exactly the same. But at least we'll know at that point. We have to know what the cost will be. And I know this is kind of putting the cart way before the horse when we talk about this. If there is a favorable number that would return, we're talking about significantly down the road and doing a significant amount of due diligence on that and speaking with all of the stakeholders, community partners, and everyone within our community to ensure that it's something that our community actually wants before we make any decisions on this. So it's important to know that when we start this process now, if approved tonight, this is simply an information gathering process for us to help us make fully informed decisions that affects the taxpayers and the safety of the citizens of this community. Now, we know that other communities around Ontario have gone through this process. In particular, within the last 3 years, the city of Dryden went through this process. And that's why I say they're off of the list for the BMA study right now. They are currently still in a transition period. So their numbers aren't really reflective of what's going on in their community. But in my opinion, they set a very high standard for public consultation on their process. And in fact, you can find that process currently online still. Mr. Mayor, I think you were the one that originally pointed out the link to me. Thank you for that. This information in their process was quite transparent and valued public and stakeholder input. And again, putting the cart before the horse, if we get to that point, I think that is something that we would want to replicate in the city of Sault Ste. Marie to ensure that every voice is heard and that everyone's opinion is counted in this process. In the process of going through this motion and just deciding what might be needed, I did also have occasion to speak with individuals in Prince Township in regards to their administration. They are currently supportive of us reaching out to them and having them be part of this conversation. So I'd encourage staff, if we ever get to that point, to reach out to the surrounding areas to have everyone be part of that conversation. And the other thing I would like to encourage staff to do is ensure that all options are explored going forward. If this is something that is approved tonight, I want to make sure that it's not something that we just simply look at with blinders on and simply try and push forward on one thing. It's important to have all options move forward. And that's why I think the public consultation later on is going to be so important. But for today, it's very important to know the cost has risen faster than any other department within the city services, including the entirety of public works. And risen at a rate that, quite frankly, the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie cannot afford to pay for any longer. It's something that I know everyone has a desire to get under control, and it's something that I think we as council have to have those difficult conversations and find out how we can help to mitigate that risk to the public. So thank you for taking the time to listen today, and I really do sincerely appreciate everyone's thoughtful response and thoughtfulness when it comes to this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Councillor Kinnick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I just wanted to ask a question for CAO Bear. Is that allowed?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to CEO Bear. Could you just walk us through the process of how this would look if it's passed here today?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, on the OPP website, they actually have information that provides a process. So the first step in that process would be a municipal council resolution asking for costing. And then with that resolution, it does kick off a process to interact with the OPP regarding the, well, first they review internally with the Solicitor General's office. And then if it would proceed, then there would be information gathering to provide data related to calls of service and review by the OPP staff of Sault Ste. Marie's operations, and then ultimately providing a costing.
So just a follow-up question. So with the costing and consulting process, this letter would start that, or do they need to give us a quote first before we can start the process of consulting, the costing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, this resolution would start that process.
Okay, and do we know the price tag of the consulting, or is that just is the city responsible for that portion? Is the OPP responsible? And when would we know that? Like if we don't want to continue because the consultation process was too expensive, how would that work?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, at this point in time, we don't have any information related to costing of consulting, if that would be required. That would have to be something that would come back to council in the future, if required for the exercise. Certainly staff didn't want to presuppose any council decision on this first step in this resolution that's before council tonight.
Okay, so just to be clear, so we send the letter and then we would come back for the consulting process to start.
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that last statement. Could you repeat that?
No problem. So we would send this letter and then the consulting process would come back to council to vote to go ahead or not to go ahead with the costing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, I think it's fair to say with the resolution, the letter would go off and then staff can have a conversation to fully understand the process from here and would be able to return back to council if anything further is required.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Is that all?
That's everything. Thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. I do want to give kudos to my ward mate, Councillor Spina, for thinking outside the box. And this is a brave step forward. And I know in the past that we have looked at, on my previous council terms, to even outsource public works. And we came to the conclusion that it wasn't the best for our community. We did outsource garbage and recycling, but overall, the overall public works was not. I want to start off by quoting something. A spike in the cost of a contract in the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, is catching some towns by surprise, leaving one mayor feeling shocked and disgusted. The OPP, which provides policing to 329 municipalities in Ontario, told Global News the price for its services is going up next year, given an increase in workload and a major pay bump for its officers. Another mayor has quoted that 90% of the OPP budget is because of salaries. 90%. And again, you can fact check this. My argument for tonight. My argument is that replacing our current PD, police department, or just costing it out, the proposal of having the OPP, in my opinion, is not what I believe we should do. Why? The largest municipality, in my understanding, we are about population of more than 75,000 now. It's more than 75,000 now. The Barrie Police, as one example, they still have their own police department, their own website. Sudbury still has their own police department. Thunder Bay has their own police department. These are cities that I think are comparing oranges to oranges. I was away at Phenom for the last few days, and I had a chance to speak to many, many townships. And I asked a retired OPP chief and asked, we are thinking of costing for us Sault Ste. Marie. Is there another community in Ontario that is close to our population that has OPP? He stopped, he paused, he scratched his head and said, there's only one, about 30,000. The larger municipality that uses the OPP, as I mentioned, is about 30,000. We are of 75,000. It would be a big leap for the OPP to manage our needs. We heard earlier today, our needs are unique. Our needs are unique because we are very large. We need at our disposal undercover cops, SWAT teams, detectives, K-9 units. And instead of waiting for these services to come, we need them immediately, and it has served us well. Because of a K-9 unit, undercover cops, and so forth, we have made more arrests than we ever have. We have seized more illegal drugs and taken them off our street. Talking to other municipalities that use OPP, yes, they can use detectives. Yes, they can use SWAT teams, but it takes time. And by that time, the drug house may have already been disbanded because they're getting, basically understanding that the police are coming. A lot of the costs associated with OPP is based on two principles: the number of properties, the number of calls for service. Again, look how many properties we have. The calls for service are very high for urban municipalities that use OPP versus a rural setting such as Richards Landing. Because we are 75,000, well, actually more, how are they going to give us a proper costing when they never manage an urban city of our size? And this goes back to my concern, which the question was just given to Mr. Ver. At the Representative Biggest, looking at the biggest center, 30,000, you can't compare us to them. All OPP costs are up. Mayor of Russell Township said to CBC, that his bill from OPP went up from $2.3 million in 2023 to roughly $2.8 million in 2024. Population in his town is only 19,000. Another example, Greater Napanee Mayor Terry Richardson said his town's costs with OPP increased by $928,000 in 2024. Conclusion, all policing, OPP, and yes, our policing is increasing. Now, on November 29, 2024, Ontario announced that it will offer $77 million, I believe, to offset dramatic spike in OPP costs. We are also looking at using some of that money to offset our costs. Just to continue on, if I may. Why are OPP's costs going up? As I mentioned, because A new 4-year deal signed between the OPP and its union is the major reason. By bringing OPP into our city, we're still going to have a union with negotiating, and we will have less voice. If we go with the OPP, we don't have any say directly with future negotiations, which brings me to point 7. We will have less voice. After 5 years of discussion and planning, the Community and Policing Act of 2019, which replaces the former Police Services Act of 1990, was proclaimed in early April 2024. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the small regional boards have now been replaced by larger boards, which means we're going to have less voice. We talked about our board tonight, where they're actually at the table with our chief, with our officers, and now we will have less voice. We, at this time, had the opportunity to merge Algoma Public Health with other public health agencies. But as a council, we decided not to do that because we said we want our own voice. So therefore, detachment boards, these can have up to 10 or 16 or more on a board where our voice is dwindled. Versus today, we have more control. Also, July 2024, the Flesherton Advance, which is a local newspaper, stated that the old boards for each municipality were shut down due to the provincial changes. So again, it's going to affect our voice. Pricing. The quote we will receive won't capture all our unique needs, as I mentioned earlier. I won't repeat that. Basically, look at it this way. Here's my analogy. A basic policing package will cost you X dollars, but if we want the SWAT team, if you want a K-9 unit, if we want undercover cops, if we want a special dispatch, all those layers are going to add cost. So if we do go out and do this costing, we have to be very careful that we list very carefully and clearly what we're looking for. To rebuild the model that we have now is going to, in my opinion, not going to save us money. The new regional detachment boards, as I mentioned, are not recognized as a municipal board. So according to Southgate Deputy Mayor Barbara Dobreen, she outlined that the insurance companies won't touch some of these boards. So will we have an insurance issue? We may. In conclusion, I quote from Robin Jones, president of AMO, Associated Municipalities Ontario. Municipal fiscal sustainability is under pressure across Ontario, under pressure for all police boards. You will see that I have a resolution 9.3 that talks about costing. I won't get into it right now. Mayor Robert Lefebvre of Hawkesbury summarizes well. Again, a lot of costs, as I mentioned, is based on 2 principles: number of properties and our size. Sault Ste. Marie is large. The calls of service are very high for urban municipalities. That's the bottom line. So in conclusion, Faith Greco, reporter for CIBC Ottawa, I thought did a great job in summarizing the pros and cons. So therefore, I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I appreciate the comments from my council colleagues, I think it's important to remember that all we're asking for here is a cost. And I do think that it's really important for council to do its due diligence. In my time on council alone, we've seen the police budget grow by over 30%. While I agree with Councillor Hollingsworth, we have to make sure that we're receiving a comparable level of service. I'm confident that staff will do that in asking for the costing. I think at this point, it would be unfair to our constituents not to do it. Getting a price doesn't mean we have to go ahead with it, but I think that at this point, I am very much in support of getting the costing and seeing what comes forward from that. But I think it's just important for us to remember at this point, we're really just asking for an estimate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Other councillors, questions? Yeah, I agree with the motion, and I've communicated that to the Sault Ste. Marie Police Association. That it would be irresponsible of us not to look into the options that are available to us. To vote against even seeking the information, as my colleague, Councillor Hollingsworth, suggests, is to not even want to know whether or not we compare closely and whether or not we can have an apples to apples comparison, as she stated. And so the fact that we've got a deficit in last year's police budget and a projected deficit in this year's police budget means that the cost of everything needs to be examined. And this is one of the ways we can do that. Do I think that we will necessarily, that it'll necessarily come in at an amount so much lower that it's going to make a transition to the OPP worth it? I highly doubt it, to be honest. But I'm not prejudging that issue, and I think that it is the difficult, yes, but responsible thing to do to support this, so that we have the information before us. And the comparison, I've talked to Mr. Ver about this, needs to be on a comparable OPP level of service. Now, I've heard suggestions and criticisms of going down this path that say, well, if there's a SWAT team for the OPP and it's based in wherever it's based in, Aurelia or Aurora or wherever, it takes time to come up here. So these are the types of things, Mr. Ver, as the analysis is done by OPP or as the costing is done by OPP, council needs to be aware of, that it might be cheaper, but it's a lesser level of service as well. And so we don't want that comparison. We want a comparison of what it would cost to have the services or a very similar mix of services to what we've currently got. And if there are changes to that level of service, that those are being made with eyes wide open. And so I support this as a first step. I suspect that there will be many updates on this before any final decision were ever made. And I would expect, Mr. Ver, that the analysis of the OPP costing is more important even than the costing itself. So for those reasons, I support this, and we'll vote in favor of it. All in favor? Any opposed? It carries with all in favor except Councillor Hollingsworth.
Brings us to agenda item 9.3, cost of policing in the north. It's a motion by Councillors Hollingsworth and Bruni, whereas Northern Ontario municipalities face insurmountable challenges to fund both upfront investments and ongoing maintenance of their capital assets, including roads, bridges, water, wastewater, and municipally owned buildings, including recreational facilities, libraries, and other tangible capital assets. And whereas Northern Ontario municipalities' operating needs consume the majority of property tax revenue sources, and whereas Northern Ontario municipalities are facing monumental infrastructure deficits that cannot be adequately addressed through property tax revenue alone. And whereas in 2015, the provincial government moved to standardized billing for all non-contract OPP locations, and whereas the annual cost of the Ontario Provincial Police Municipal Policing Bureau for small rural non-contract municipalities is approximately $428 million. And whereas before a one-time provincial support transfer, municipalities across Northern Ontario in 2024 received notices from the OPP with an average annual increase of 17.8%, representing 7.7% of the municipal tax levy. And whereas the estimated annual cost of the Ontario Provincial Police Municipal Policing Bureau for municipalities in the Northeast is $43 million. And whereas the police levy in 2025 to the 4 large cities in Northeastern Ontario is $174 million after grants. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Sault Ste. Marie requests that the Ontario government commit to phasing in a $100 million policing grant over the next 3 years for the 157 northern communities. After the 3rd year, the fund to increase by the minimum of the annual consumer price so that each community would receive a base amount of $60,000 with the remaining funds allocated based on population. If the sum of the base amount and the population-based allocation exceeds the amounts received in 2024 notifications from the OPP plus the annual consumer price index, the funding for that community to be capped to avoid surplus situations. Further, that this resolution be forwarded to Premier Doug Ford, Minister of the Solicitor General, the Minister of Finance, the membership of FNOM and Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. This goes hand in hand to the previous resolution. OPP costing, as I won't go into it because we just made that conclusion, costing for OPP and policing are just high. OPP to cost of Collingwood, did you know this? Collingwood is going up by 37% more next year? Anyway, as your Phenom rep, I just want to bring this to your attention that Phenom is working very hard with the government, provincial government, to say enough is enough. Costing for our safety, costing for our community, costing for police, OPP, and police departments are just outrageous. Salaries, as I mentioned, is the largest portion of the budget for OPP and, yes, the PD. Anyway, I just hope that you can support this. I think it sounds like you may, because it sounds like we are all very tired of these costs that we keep on being pushed on us. Thank you.
Councillor, Bruni?
Just a quick note. Right now, the Ford government is providing funding for the smaller municipalities that are having difficulty with their police budgets. But the bigger northern municipalities are not receiving any funding to offset the wages and the benefits, et cetera. So I think this is very important, this resolution, and hopefully Premier Ford receives it and can provide some type of funding for the bigger Northern Ontario municipalities. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Bruni. I want to talk to this a little bit as a member of NOLM, the Northern Ontario Large Urban Mayors. And while I appreciate that this is a Phenom resolution that represents the interests of northern communities across the board, the interests of the NOLM communities on this issue diverge from the issue, the kind of global Phenom position, because 100 million would cover OPP policed communities, but none of the 5 large communities are OPP policed. And so there is not, in my opinion, in this motion, a recognition of the difference in the 5 large communities and how that can be counted for, perhaps lack of no pun intended there. And so there is efforts underway by NOLM to advocate for more funding for the 5 large communities, but it'll be different than this request. And so I don't support this, on a technicality. I think it more than anything because it doesn't represent the advocacy that Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, North Bay, Timmins, and Thunder Bay are going to be doing with respect to our police budgets specifically. It represents essentially all the other northern communities that form part of Phenom. But we are having those discussions with the Premier's office, expecting to at least in the coming weeks and month. And so for those reasons, not because I don't think it's a good ask for those other communities, I don't think it represents the proper ask for our community.
And put the 5 northern communities that you said.
If I may, it was my fault because at Phenom, we did add that one sentence that is for the police departments as well as the OPP, so I apologize. If we could add that, we would greatly appreciate it.
I think it probably needs some work if we're going to do that, and I don't want to vent it here on the fly. Is it possible to
next council meeting
withdraw it and then resubmit it? Okay.
That will bring us to agenda item 9.4. Addition to Ministry of Transportation. That's a motion by Councillors Hollingsworth and Bruni. Whereas the topography and climate of Ontario, north and west of the Canadian Shield, is uniquely different from that of the balance of the province. And whereas due to that topography, it is more costly to construct or maintain 100 kilometers of highway in Northern Ontario than the balance of the province. And whereas the highway network in Northern Ontario is vital to connecting citizens to healthcare, employment, groceries, and recreation. And whereas Highway 11, Highway 17, Highway 69 are the 400 systems of Northern Ontario. And whereas the municipal share of Connecting Link funding has become prohibitive for all communities. And whereas the province of Ontario has made and continues to make a significant investment in the Ontario Northland and bring back the Northlander train service. And whereas every senior politician in Ontario and the balance of Canada noted the raw earth elements deposits in the Ring of Fire. And whereas the transportation of these raw earth elements will travel through Northern Ontario. And whereas the Nuclear Waste Management Organization has selected the community of Ignis for the location of Canada's deep geological repository for spent nuclear fuel, and the fuel will be transported through Northern Ontario. And whereas on November 10, 2022, the province announced Ontario moving ahead with first ever 2+1 highway in North America. And on July 14, 2023, the Ministry of Transportation announced Ontario starting work on 2+1 highway. And during this recent provincial election campaign, Premier Ford announced his government would extend the 2+1 highway another 220 kilometers from Temiskaming Shores to Cochrane. And whereas as of May 2025, the minister has not announced a start date for construction of the initial 2+1 highway. And whereas the annual road safety annual report selected statistics does not provide a breakdown by region. And whereas the 2023 Ontario Road Safety Annual Report selected statistics reported that there were 1,504 large truck accidents in Ontario with 107 fatalities. And whereas large truck accidents occur daily in Northern Ontario, often resulting in death. And whereas accidents in Northern Ontario are the cause of many lengthy highway closures or detours using municipal infrastructure not designed for highway traffic. And whereas many Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities members have commented that there is a lack of response to their concerns or inquiries from the Ministry of Transportation and or regional staff. And whereas Northern Ontario will be the economic engine that drives Ontario and Canada for the next 100 years. And whereas the province needs a dedicated team focused on improving today's network while planning for and acting on future requirements. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Sault Ste. Marie requests that the Premier either appoint a Deputy Minister of Transportation for Northern Ontario or create an Associate Minister responsible for Northern Ontario transportation. Further be it resolved that this resolution be sent to Premier Ford, the Minister of Transportation, the membership of the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
I won't go into that. It explains it well. I think everyone around this table and the community that's listening to us tonight realizes we've had so many transport accidents through the north. Between Sault Ste. Marie and Wawa, the highway's been closed. I remember seeing Echo Bay, outside Echo Bay, just like 3 months ago, a transport across the highway upside down. But there's a shortage of transport drivers in Canada, and we have new transport drivers coming to Canada. They need to have more training, but besides that, we just need our highways to be improved for the safety of our constituents that work outside Sault Ste. Marie. Anyway, it's very self-explanatory, but I hope I have everyone's blessing and support on this to improve the safety of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Bruni? Nothing further? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? That carries.
Is Councillor first still in the? And Gardy.
In favor.
Carries. I have a motion by Councillors Bruni and Caputo, resolved that all bylaws under item 12 of the agenda under date May 12, 2025 be approved.
All in favor?
And a motion by Councillors Bruni and Zagordo resolved that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? That carries. Thank you, council.